What's up? It's Mystic Wednesday. We out here. Yeah, we got my boys, George and Gabriel. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do the weave. I will conform. You must conform. So yeah, I'm stoked about it. We're gonna just kind of free ball it. This is a live hangout, exchanging ideas, laughing, maybe even dad jokes. Two of your dads. But really though, it's this eclipse, man. It's feeling a little hostile. So I'm hoping you guys out there are ready to cool off with us and just enjoy some good old fashioned weaving, weaving and chilling. And we got lots to talk about. I know George has gone through some fun life changes, but before we start, I'll go ahead. Maybe I should wait. I'll just announce it at the end too. Tomorrow at noon Central, we are, by we, I guess it's just me. I'm going on Alpha Vedic tomorrow at noon. It's going to be a good time talking with Dr. Lando and Mike Winner, DJ Mike. Really excited about that. They are calling the conversation Reclaiming the Narrative. So I guess we'll talk a little bit about reclaiming the narrative and whatever else they want to get into. And I would love also to hear from some more of you guys about setting up a tuning session. I believe I'm currently booked out to somewhere in the middle of May. So that's been pretty common, running about a month ahead. That means if you do want to get on my schedule, please get in touch and we'll make it happen. We've had some awesome sessions lately, getting down to the deep roots of why people maybe have been experiencing certain challenges that they would like to no longer need to experience. So yeah, George, Third Eye Edify, how's it going?
Everything is excellent. Thank you. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, for sure, man. And, you get excited about it. I like that.
Oh, I get excited. It's great. It's great. It's exciting to watch when it comes on every Wednesday. It's kind of like, it feels like the 80s, 90s when you had a TV show that you wanted to watch every, once a week with the family or something or friends. It's like the old times. It's so cool, man.
Prime time, Wednesday night. That's right.
I love it, man. I love it. No, life's good, man. Life's good. Big changes at the end of the last Vibrant I was on. Maybe it was like early March. I was telling everyone at the very end that I'm moving to Kentucky, which I did. We're here. I grew up in Long Island my whole life, and I guess you take vacations, you see how the world is, but now being here, we've been here about almost 3 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. It's been so just wonderful. Not tectonic plate shifting or anything. We knew it was going to be different, but we're not really out of touch with the kind of stuff we were surrounded by back at the old place. And the people are absolutely wonderful. And we bought a used car, brought it to a mechanic, and they said, nothing's wrong with this thing. Whoever had it took great care of it. You know what I mean? Everyone's trustworthy. It's a beautiful thing. Really. It's been amazing here so far.
Dude, tell me more.
Yeah. Well,
it's a high trust community. I just want to congratulate you, man.
Thank you.
Is, first of all, she's right. You have fantastic hair.
Well, yeah.
And I've got to say hi to everyone in the chat. What's up, Polymathing? Always good to see you, buddy. You got great mushroom pictures today in the Telegram chat.
Nice.
Thank you for that. Stacy, Joe, Sherry, Rachel, Kyle. Got lots of good ones. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Please go ahead and, if you don't mind, share this with maybe like one friend you think would like it. Anyway, George, I just got to congratulate you again on the move. That is, first of all, you got children, but even without that, even if it's just a solo human moving to a different pod,
right?
It's not easy to do, man. It somehow gets a little, seems like the squeeze on all that residency switch up gets a little more squeezy all the time. So nicely done. Congratulations. Tell me a little bit more about what inspired the move. Like what, I love that you're already connected to some community. Tell me about it more.
Sure, man. No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it because I think it's worth discussing as far as, well, okay, let's start from here, right? Pizza. It's always, you leave New York, there's not going to be any good pizza. I had really great pizza just yesterday.
Thank
and
God.
I told them I was born in Queens. I was near Brooklyn, Bronx. I grew up in Long Island. The pizza's obviously, it's pretty second to none, but this stuff, it was great. And the kids loved it too, so we're not missing out on so far we're not missing out on almost anything really. There were tons of farms where I was. You can get raw milk and stuff. We have access to raw milk, local raw milk, which is, obviously for the kids now. And by the way, the bottle says not for human consumption because it's not pasteurized. Yeah, whatever, right? But
he's going off label.
Yeah, I'm off label, man. I'm off. So as far as the inspiration for the move, it comes back to what I said. Right? I said a little something at the end of that other Vibrant a few weeks ago, maybe almost a month now. It's because of my wife, Nicole. She is in midwifery school right now. She's been a doula for a bit now, and it's an online course, but the person who runs it, Marin, she's very local. We're very close to her now. So we're kind of at the epicenter of where this all goes on. She may get an apprenticeship out here because of it. We're actually renting a house. I don't mind being so candid during all of this. So we're checking the place out for a year at a rate that is on a foreign rate to a New Yorker for sure. And she, it's amazing. It's amazing, really. And I'm going to have her on my show maybe within a week or two to talk all about the adventure she's been going on lately. It's something that people need to hear. It's really amazing. But that's really the main inspiration. I've been teaching since the late 90s music. So I have my students, I brought them here with me because they're online now. They've been online since the C word happened. And so thankfully I can just keep doing
you
that.
Can say the word.
Yeah, good. The COVIDious, whatever you want to call it. And, you know what? Let me tell you, this is the thing that I think your audience will appreciate the most out of everything I've said so far, even beyond the raw milk. I haven't seen this. And maybe it's because of where I lived. I moved a few places here and there, a few towns over Long Island. I grew up on Long Island. I just turned 41. I've been there my entire life, right? And what I have not seen in 10, 15 years is just 7, 8, 20 kids all running together in the streets, hanging out on the corners. You knew who was where because their bikes were on the front lawn, right? You could just knock and see if somebody was home. It's here. it's here. My daughter is only 2.5, and I have a video of these five, right? And I have this video of these 5 girls she met seconds before this, and they're like, "Hey, you want us to flip you upside down?" They're all lifting her; she's light as a feather, and they flip her upside down. Oh man, it's one of the biggest reasons we came out here. On top of all that stuff, the community, and just people are surprised when we tell them where we're from, not because of the accent, but maybe the nice factor. I'm not sure. It's been, I hope that gives you some insight into, well, you can see my excitement level, obviously, but it's really great here.
Man, that is so touching. Yeah, Chance, you said it before I could, man. The goosebumps hit hard with that, man. That is so cool.
It's real childhood?
Yeah, actual, like, wow, playing.
Yes. I love that, man. The kids running around, like, the neighborhood I grew up in, there were no fences in the yards. So you'd be blazing through people's backyards.
Yeah.
And if you just blaze past your buddy's backyard a couple times, that was the signal. Next thing you know, your buddy pops out the backyard. He's blazing around with you. That's cool.
And not blazing like smoking weed.
No,
right?
no,
I'm just kidding.
we're talking about.
I have this really cherished memory when I was 5 years old and we moved to the house I grew up in from that point on, and my parents still have this house. We were coming down the road. We're moving in. This is the day, we're going in and we're going to live there. And the next door neighbors, there were 2 boys, one that was a little less than a year younger than me and one that was a little less than a year older than me. So just the trifecta, I see them, they're riding big wheels down their driveway, which had a nice hill to it. And there's a big dirt pile at the end of the driveway, and they're ramping the big wheels over the dirt pile. And I got out of the car, couldn't care less about the new house. And I went straight over to their yard, and they had a big wheel for me. And I was riding big wheels with them, and we were brothers from then on. The 3 of us, we were the 3 Musketeers, dude. So it's heartwarming to hear that there's a future out there in some parts of the world where kids are still kids and they can play outside and they can meet their neighbors and people aren't afraid. And it's really beautiful, dude. Thank you for doing that for your daughter. So good, dude.
Yeah, we plan on making sure they know. I mean, she basically knows she knows her zodiac already. We're trying to make sure they start in the right spots, man. For sure. It's going to be a unique life for them. In more ways than one,
Also really cool to hear about the doula-ship midwifery thing with Nikki.
Yeah.
At some point we will want to get an experienced person to talk about that, namely her. I think it's awesome to imagine a guide to the birthing process who is going to be hip to the placenta magic and maybe encourage some alternative thinking to somebody who's hopefully already open to it if they're going to a midwife. But that's great, man. Tell her congratulations. Keep going. That's a very needed role. Always will be.
Yeah, man. I'm still taken by your word choice. Like you said, the epicenter. And you just move the R on the end over by the P and you get yourself a nice placenta.
Not to mention that's the epicenter of your territories, Kentucky.
And you nailed it, Chance. Stealing all my lines, brother. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
With your work. What can I say?
No, you're so spot on. My territories centers around Kentucky.
Right. The way you put the car. I remember. I saw what you did with that. Yeah.
Yes. And I think of the Mississippi River as the placenta of the nation. And that branch right there, kind of at the bottom of Illinois on the east side of Kentucky, and I've even kind of played with the word Kentucky with the putting like a Portuguese twang to it. It can become like a twilight derivative of caindo aqui. And caindo aqui in Portuguese means to fall right here. It falls right here. And that's where I put the Fool card. I put the Fool card in the placenta of the nation. Wow. And caindo aqui is Kentucky.
Wow. Well, I did walk off an edge, so to speak, in a positive way. And we brought a dog with us.
Oh, sweet. That's so cool.
Incredible. Wow, man, that's really cool. I'm gonna relook at the things you were doing with that now, because that intrigued me so much, man. I thought that was incredible. Your work with the tarot and the in
Oh,
this section of the country.
It just
right.
gets better every time Gabe delivers a presentation about Avengers Tarot relation or the Tarot Tories. He does a good job building on his own thing.
Incredible.
What part of Kentucky are you in? Like east, west, central?
There's a East Kentucky University right here, so
Okay.
we're definitely still in Eastern time, and
Oh,
so we're before Central for sure. We're
mhm.
about we're less than a half an hour from Lexington, which is pretty much the
Okay.
major city in this area for sure.
Right.
And
So,
airport's not far away either. We're right in a good spot here.
yeah. So there's a few artifacts that kind of reinforce the Fool card being there.
Hmm.
The Dogman mystery is right there in
Oh.
kind of southeastern.
Hmm.
The hills there is kind of the origin of a lot of Dogman mythology. And Dogman pops up in other spots, but that is a hotbed. And the Fool card's got that dog
Right.
by his ankles there. And then I'll never forget, like when Chance was telling me about the Hellier series
Hmm.
and what those brothers were doing in Kentucky. It's the last thing I binge watched on. I set everything aside and I went straight through for 2 days and I watched all of the Hellier series, and it just blew my mind how what I had already discovered by mapping out the tarot cards was like spooky with reinforcement of all the mystical what do they call it? Fortean, all the Fortean mythology that is birthed out of that center, out of that epicenter, as you put it.
Right. Wow. Very cool, man. Well, I mean, I'm more excited now. I'm
Just
even
watch
more
out for
excited than I was.
goblins.
Well, and snakes apparently, plenty of snakes apparently out here. But not really where we are. But man, amazing, really.
Yeah,
It's
a lot
amazing.
of it. I've even speculated that, like, even the phrase like "let the force be with you."
Mm.
I often wonder if that's a nod to Charles Fort. La
Wow.
fuerza, está la fuerza contigo. It is the
Wow.
force that is with you. And there, what powers some of those phenomenon is there are crystals under the earth there, and that's what powers the Jedi's lightsabers, kyber crystals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think of okay, I've been on a little study kick of document referred to as the Sanchuniathon or Sankaniathon. The document is named after the supposed author. It is, I think it's from like the 3rd century BC or AD. It's claimed to be older than that, but it's basically it's Eusebius, the early church father, supposedly quoting Philo of Byblos, the Phoenician, who is supposedly quoting somebody named Sanchoniathon. So it's like a big game of telephone.
Right.
And Eusebius maybe isn't the most always honest author either. You got to take it with a grain of salt with them early church fathers, right? But there's a very interesting, just like all these other sort of creation mythoses, this one's said to be the Phoenicians' theology, their cosmogony theology that was given to them by Teotates, which is exactly the same name as Thoth, right?
Yeah.
Also the same word basically as the Teutonic, which is the name of early Germanic tribes. So anyway, there's a lot to weave on with that, and maybe I'll bring up other things from it. But you're talking about the force, and there's in this genealogy given in the Sanchuniathon, there's a pair named Genus and Genia, who to me are a lot like a Remus and Romulus equivalent. They were
Right.
the first inhabitants of Phoenicia, according to this. And then Genus or Genus, depending on how you want to pronounce the G, is said to have begat Phos, Pure, or Phos, Pure, and Flux, which all those names refer to fire and light. But, may the force be with you. You're saying that, and it made me really think of Phos, the Greek word for a pure, brilliant light. It's even in the New Testament, whenever Jesus says, be the light of the world, he says, be the phos of the world. So, you know, that's what popped into my head to weave there. You hear a lot of hard vowel sounds of long vowel sounds like O and A sounds kind of get a little R come in behind them anyway. So phos and force, it's not that far off.
No, that's close. Yeah, it's close. It's close enough for me, man.
Close enough for jazz.
That works. Close enough for jazz, man.
But I really like that trinity of sons. Phos, pure. Pure is the Greek word for fire. Also, it's the Latin word for purity. And interestingly enough, it's the Hindu or Sanskrit word for a stronghold or fortress. And force, you know, we're talking about force, right. Strong, strength, fortis. There's always this kind of linguistic connection between the strong God and fire and light. And you see it between those languages there. And then flux, you know, that's like flux in Latin, like flow.
Yeah.
There's an interesting trinity, phos, pure, and flux. And flux also makes me think of the flowers, the creeping flux, you know, as they flow out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where my brain's been today, is on this Ascensioneathon document. It's one of the things Dylan references in one of the chapters of Holy Sailors. And so I was like, today felt like a good day to chase down that particular source and lead. It's good stuff. I'll post a link to it in the Vibrant chat from sacredtext.com. It's not a very long cosmology theology. And there's some interesting stuff in there. I might bring up more.
Yeah. You know, Teutonic Knights, you know, was kind of got that Knights Templar legacy to it. And there's so much evidence that the Templars were here long before what the record indicates. So much going on with that. One of the things we brought up in our herb walks was like nightshades. You know, and they say that nightshades are from the Americas. That's one of the things. That's why there was all the superstition around when they started to get introduced into European cuisine. There was a lot of superstition around it. And some people, their digestion wasn't ready for those, the Western vegetation and the way that it affects their digestion. But kind of a funny thing is that, you know, nightshade is anagrams out to Hades things. Wow. Shades becomes Hades, and nights is things. And that's hitting a chord for me because I'm big on Hades and Pluto and the Dis and all things hidden and removed from. And you know, when the sun disappears in the west, it's going over the Americas, you know, and so to the idea of keeping the Americas hidden, or even that the Americas were like the land of death, where the sun disappears every day. It's really fascinating to me. And that the Knights Templar were probably keeping their full network well under wraps for a long time.
I'm sure you've already connected this, but how it's interesting that the underworld of America, as in the world that's under Florida,
right,
is Haiti. You know, T and D, the letters T and D interchange. You can tell just by the word Haiti, like the country. People say it like it's a D. They don't really say Haiti. It's Haiti. You know, that's Hades. Right. They named it that. To me, it seems obvious that they named that as like an underworld reference to the continent above it.
Great point. George,
how was on your territories? That would be lining up with the death card, right? Be extending out in that direction. You got it.
Bingo. Death card number 13. Yeah, man. Yep. Spot on. George, how is your Greek?
I can get away with a lot of talking to a lot of people about a lot of different things. But as far as, you know, me being like, what I plan on doing, especially in the next year, is just really getting back to speed on how well I know the alphabet and can read it well, because I can phonetically, I can almost read like German better than Greek sometimes. You know what I mean? Because I saw so much of it being like studying for music. But I can speak it pretty fluently. Like I know a lot of words, and I know random words that I forgot I knew because I learned them when I was like 5 or 10. So yeah. I definitely know plenty of words. Like, is there any particular thing you're asking about, or overall just asking? Because I certainly, I can speak it, but it's not, it's not like I'm not the strongest Greek. I'm not yet, and I will be. I can bring it back up to speed quick. You know.
Nice. That's great. Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm kind of fascinates me is I'm finding so much Greek mythology kind of coming back to the surface in so much of my research, to the extent that I have a bias for finding it, but it's like, but one example, I guess, kind of staying with the Hades thing is like, to know that, Dis is the Romanized version of Hades.
Right.
And Hades in his Greek context is like, has many names, like unseen and like invisible, but also another epithet for him is he who takes away, who takes everything away. Because when you die, he comes and, takes you down to Hades.
Right.
But then you have to kind of take it out of that Greek and you run it through the Roman, and acquires that name Dis. And then we see, how do we use the word dis now? Well, the word dis means to take away, dissociative disorder.
Right.
That's got a double dis in it.
Right. And it could also be a negative thing if you diss someone.
Right.
Like
You're disrespecting.
Negative like towards their honor, though. Like it's a really bad way to say something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of something that my research is really touching on, is how our language, it still attaches to the spirit of these Greek divinities.
Right.
And there's kind of like what's the word, provenance. There's a provenance of the language, a genealogy of the language. Right. And we have to kind of see it through the Romans, and then put it in its Greek context. And then there's treasures to be found. There's many treasures to be found with that lens. So I just, you're going to be our go-to for all kinds of Greek questions.
That sounds great, man. That sounds great. It gives me a chance to really refresh a lot of things, because, there's all kinds of little connections to sentences and all these little things that I lost along the way, some of them, but I can still, as soon as I hear it, I'm back and I got it again, because I've said it, I've said it a bunch. The other thing is that I was with my Greek grandparents until my parents got home from work every day, so I learned it from them. I obviously didn't go to like school for it or anything, but they had left Greece or they weren't going to school anymore because of some war. They were, they didn't get this like full on education, so I get a lot of slang here and there too. So there's times when I actually don't know a word like I thought I did, that I get to, relearn it, and it helps me actually know it better at the end of the day. But it's something I'm going to revisit for sure, because there's a lot of languages I have my toes in, and I want to keep them all, at some level. And I know that Greek's the easiest one for me to just go full on with, because I already have so much of it. So I hope to get a few other languages that I never got to really focus on, and sort of, bring them up to speed, and then I can really make the Greek happen. But every single time you guys are talking about something, the Greek ends up in there somewhere, whether it's, with or without gematria. It has a very large part of what we say and do. So many words are still similar. Right. And then so many words definitely aren't, they sound so different, like exaplase is Greek for, sleep, and rochalizi is snore. You know what I mean? Some words are totally off balance, but a lot of them really still retain a lot of the roots, and you recognize them almost right away, even if you don't know the language. Yeah.
About dis or dis, because a lot of times that I is really more of an E sound.
Mm-hmm.
Caesar wrote that the Gauls derived their civilization from dis pater, father dis. And part of the reason why I really like to dispute Mosaic history and show how much more ancient the biblical stories and astrotheology really is because so many kingdoms and governments and nations are built on that lie, or that it's really more of like a trend. I don't even want to be like they're liars or they're bad men, but what it was popular back in the day, definitely thing in Greece. I'm sure you're aware, George, like every city, state, every tribe, they're tracing their descent from some hero or another hero, naming their whole little micro civilization by the name of that particular heroic forefather. So anyway, dis is supposedly Japhet, one of the sons of Noah, is also called Dis, or Dis. So to me, that makes a lot of sense because the three sons of Noah are a Trinity metaphor allegory as well. So one of them has to be sort of the underworld guy. And yeah, Caesar wrote about that with the Gauls, though. He was the founder. They also called him Samothrace, the founder of the Celtic kingdom.
I keep thinking of Dei also, DEI. That
Oh,
keeps popping
die,
into my head
day.
too. Yeah,
100%.
It's all, yeah, right.
Deus easily could become Deus. Deus is a hop and a skip from Theos, which is another word for God. Deus and Theos. Those two words are evident words for God, Deus and Theos, demonstrating once again the D to T interchangeability or D to TH interchangeability.
Right.
It's for sure. What's the word? I learned the word for that. Beticism. That's the word we need to start using to really sound like professional ass researchers. When we're talking about letter swaps, instead of just calling them, letter swaps, call it a beticism, BETACISM, or betacism. That's the word for it.
That is very interesting.
Very cool.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, beta being language or house. That's really cool. Man, there's a lot right there, Chance, that you just put out. I want to ask George about. I might have asked you this.
Guys, I'm sorry. I just lied to everyone. Betacism is the B switching to the V.
Oh.
I guess that doesn't mean all letter switches, but that's one of the letter switches is B to V. My bad.
Okay, that's great.
Wouldn't want to give misinformation.
Mysticism. So, George, I feel like I might have asked you this before, but I'm going to run it by you again. So I'm finding this strange thing around the letter F in the Greek alphabet, and that even today, when I look into, in Greek, it was called isopsophy, is the real nerdy technical term for gematria in Greek.
Right.
But even when I look up the alphabet today, the F is removed in the order and it's put in at the end of the list.
Right.
But its numerical value is still a 6. And I'm just wondering and I feel like there's some kind of superstition at foot.
Yeah, and you're talking about lowercase. You're not talking about uppercase, because every so often there's like a pretty stark difference, but not really. I mean,
I didn't notice. I think it just in general that the F was like added in at the very end, and I just wonder if that rings true to anything that you know of. Because
what are you talking about? F added into the Greek alphabet?
It's like as a late comer.
There is no F in the Greek alphabet.
Well, I think that's what he means. That like they, after the fact, they kind of shoved it in there
at the end.
Okay, there's just the phi. It's all I know about.
Yeah, it skips from epsilon to zeta.
Yeah,
it goes from E to G. And then, when I look it up, the F is like a post arrival. It comes at the end, like it was late to the party. And
in the last, tau would be the traditional end of it, right? The original 16 letters, and then you get upsilon, phi, chi, psi, or c, and omega. Come later.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't actually. I honestly don't know.
Now, I want to kind of maybe put a bias in your mind.
Right.
Musically, what would that maybe imply? If F was seen through a musical lens by the Greeks,
right,
would there be any reason for them to avoid it or to dance around it? Because because the name of it is digamma.
Right.
Which is they're even kind of being superstitious, I think, when they call it twice 3. they don't even name it like, they don't even name it 6. They don't give it its own name. They even use double 3 to refer to it.
Right.
So
I see what you mean.
so I feel like there's some, because
That's very interesting.
yeah, and I'm kind of leading the witness a little bit because
No, it's good. I appreciate it because it helps me think about more things now. Musically, you're saying, that it can go on for
It
hours.
is
about
interesting because if you kept the digamma, then sorry, I didn't realize we're
No,
talking
no,
about
no.
digamma. Then the ancient Irish alphabet would be identical to the Greek in terms of the 17 letters instead of 16.
Oh, I see.
Interestingly.
so
Go keep going, George.
No, that's
Just
interesting.
wanted to
man.
sprinkle the seasoning on there.
Well, no, that's good. That's good. Because F falls into an interesting spot in the history of how we, and as I say, I think I've said it in every single vibrant, is that we're associating a letter name with a certain frequency. It's almost meaningless in general. F is whatever F they wanted it to be that day. If they had an instrument, maybe it was in tune like it was the day before. You didn't know. But the way that we generally look at F and the way we think about it, yes, it's the 6th letter from A, but C is our go-to Bible, first note. So it's usually 4. I don't know if that helps us think about anything. So beyond that, when you say 2 3s, 2/3 are how we make a chord. There's a major third and a minor third, or vice versa, minor third and a major third. So 2/3, 2 3s is really a very hefty thing in music. It's the basis for all harmony that we use now.
wow.
And maybe not so much back then. Back then was more of a scalar approach and maybe not so much of a chord thing. And there's hardly any record to prove it regardless. So 2 3s is a big deal, actually.
Wow.
And what you're speaking about, how it's still number 6, even though it's at the bottom and it wasn't where it belonged, right? This actually is the idea of inversion too, because a note going in one direction is a 6th, and if you go backwards instead from the original note, you'll get a 3rd instead. So it would be the same note exists in a different numerical setting depending on whether you go up or down,
Right.
from whatever note you're traveling from. So yeah, there's an idea there musically. It's cool that's cool, man. I didn't think about that, but it could be more than that too, because there was the hexachord gamut where you had 6 notes only, but they generally consider them starting from, and again, this is very loose, from C or from G or from F. And there was a hard and a soft for the most part. And I think F was the soft one. I got to re-look at that. I forgot.
Yeah.
I think F was called a soft hexachord as opposed to a hard one. And G was the other one. So gamma being where F would be. F and G are always around musically speaking. And all the stuff we used to talk about with the pillars and the things that we've discussed, musically. F and G are like, they go hand in hand in that relating to C. So there's some things there. I'd have to now write some things down and look at it. Yeah, man.
So
Gabe, I've been telling you to watch The Prisoner, and here you are bringing up whether or not we can say 6 or not. And that's like a big part of that show. You got to watch that show because like everyone in this village gets a number, and the main character's number is number 6, and he's the one they're trying to crack. And about your Enneagram and 6, and they're trying to make people into 6s, and he's the 6 that is loyal to himself rather than loyal to a group. And they're perplexed. They can't figure him out. They're like, what is this number 6? He's not like a 6 should be.
Whoa.
It's going to blow your mind. You got to go watch that. But
So,
can we talk a little more about the digamma? Because
go
ahead. I'll hold on. I got it written down.
It's all good. I think we're seeing the dogma of digamma. And I'm thinking that what if the F sharp, the devil's tone, what if that is the this character in The Prisoner, the one who's an individual who doesn't sit well with the collectivism, and then the soft F would be okay. So a 6 on the Enneagram is a loyalist. Is its virtue, and its vice or its shadow side is fear. And those two natures play off of each other. And so the character in The Prisoner would be the fear factor, because he's not a loyalist. He's not going along to get along. He doesn't buy the surface level narrative. yeah, I think there's something really neat going on here. I don't speak music, and I can tell because I don't speak music, I can tell that I'm only seeing half of the magic of my own project.
Well,
Because
there's the magic though of it, is that everything relates in some way, you know, and you're nailing it, man. Because F sharp, as I said, C is usually 1. If you go 6 clicks from C, you get
Yeah.
F sharp. F sharp is the 6th click. Has to, you know, going one note by one note. So it is, you know.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
it-
That is very interesting.
so in the symposium, they're talking around this missing 6th position. The 6th seat is empty, and Socrates is number 7. And eventually, this interloper comes after the whole dialogue happens. This drunk dude, Alcibiades, comes barging in, and he plops down in the 6th seat and tries to get between Socrates and the host of the party, Agathon. What's that?
He gets 60.
It's getting 60. It's getting real 60.
Real
Anyway,
60.
though, he's into Socrates, like a little too into Socrates.
Right. Well, and then and Socrates even says, like, nothing should be between us. No one should get between us. There's nothing. He says it like 3 times. He's implying the emptiness of that 6, or the void in the seating arrangement. But the other kind of fascinating thing is that in Socrates' last day, or his last days, he's in prison and he's speaking to his daimon, and his daimon is telling him that he missed a detail, and that he should turn his attentions, open himself up to music. And he has this reflection where he's like, is it possible that the unreasonable feeling aspect of the human experience is the frontier that I never mastered? And so he kind of has a little bit of regret. So while he's in prison, he actually does compose some dithyrambs, or some poetry that is supposed to be to music, but it's not very good, because it's like his all-time weakness is that artist musical aspect. And I just and so that tells me kind of, that I need to maybe look at music so I can see the full picture of what was being said all along.
I see. Yeah, I need to see it too, to make the proper connections, you know.
Yeah, man.
We can look at it together. That's interesting. That's real interesting.
Yeah, because I know I've seen you put together the chords on a circle,
right,
and you focus on that line right up and down the middle. Tell me, what is that? Yeah, what is that line again? Is it the F to the C? Is that what
C to F sharp, and that is the tritone that we were discussing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the tritone, and again, that's that 6th, technically the 6th note above C. So that pole, so to speak, and on the outsides of F sharp are going to be G and F. You know what I mean? Depending on which wheel you look at. But the one I want to think that's the best choice, I think, because it leads to either. F sharp's the black key on the piano that's in between F and G. And F and G and the reason it matters is that F and G relate the strongest to C. We can find all of our basis for dissonance and what it wants to do comes from exactly what we're discussing. So it's a big part of music in general,
Yeah.
I gotta say thank you to Brother Marty Leeds of the Gnostic Church and Academy. Always quick on the super chat. Really appreciate it, dude. It's so excited for you and Jennifer to move out here. We're gonna have a good time. Just in time for my Jennifer's birthday. I'm cooking something up, so be ready.
Nice. Are they? How soon is that going to happen?
Well, I saw like dogs in a suitcase, a dog and a cat. So awesome. I think it's soon. And maybe he'll let us know in the chat. It's so exciting, though. We have like just George, I know that Kentucky called you there, but if that house doesn't work out, you can always come out to South Missouri.
Oh, man.
A lot of happening.
Hey, if we have time, I'd hope to stop by at least and say hi, man. We'll pull that off at the very least. But yeah.
Oh, I can't wait for the real life George hug.
Actual. Oh, man. Sounds amazing. And I think we should tail off just for a moment now that we talked about all that hard and soft hexachords and stuff. that F is called the mole, Moelle, and G is called the durum, Durum. So I'm not sure if that helps you think of anything else that relates to any other words or anything that comes to mind. Because I'm not sure if that relates in my mind to anything else right now.
I'm still thinking about digamma. I'm holding on to a digamma quote.
Yes.
Hopefully Chance is not cooking meth. That would be a very unhappy accident if I was. I'm pretty sure I'm not. Okay, so I want to read a couple of quotes for you guys.
Yeah.
To think about, like
Jacques de Molay,
who's that?
the mole. Mole. What did you say? The mole is relates to the which note?
F.
Wow, he was very discordant. Oh, fascinating. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jan.
Good.
Oh, no problem. We're just having fun here.
No, this is good. This is good.
So there's this author called Bishop Marsh, who I'm pretty sure this quote comes from within Higgins' Eclipse book, huge book. Like, why I'm so into the old sources, like this early 1800s book from Higgins, isn't necessarily because I think all his conclusions are right, but because he's citing so many other sources that you would just never hear about otherwise. But you can find like on archive.org. Because just think about how, Gabe, you were just telling me today about you go to look up some juicy nugget that you've got in your back pocket and you know where it is, and it's just no longer findable online, right? That's been going on for a long time before the internet. So like in the late 1700s, all through the 1700s, when, world travel started to open up a lot, and when the British Empire was big, there were all kinds of learned gentlemen going all over the place, trying to figure out what was up, learning. And some of the information that they got from like the Brahmins and from exploring just has vanished or is no longer available, like literal book burning, or like the knowledge is then put in a vault somewhere or kept secret. So when you get into some of these sources, like this guy Bishop Marsh that Higgins is quoting here, you might not even be able to go somewhere in India and have the experience that got you that information, but you got to wonder, like, why was this person writing it down anyway? And so it all becomes just points in the column of very curious, very interesting. And if you get enough points over in that column on a certain idea, then you can consider it a reasonable assumption until other evidence proves it otherwise, So he's talking about the use of the digamma and talking about dies in this quote. And he says, so I'm going to be doing a little bit of reading here, so bear with me. But if you want to jump in at any point and like you have to add a little on top, please do. I'm not going to lose my place. So he says the digamma represented the Vav, or the W, which, by the way, is a Phoenician character as well. And Marsh wrote about it that it has been thought indeed anomalous to insert the digamma in such a word as D or die, but which is in the Greek like delta iota, but one of the iotas has like the long E sound accent mark. So he says, but to judge of the digamma, we should not speak of insertion, for it was a constituent part of the primitive Greek alphabet, and our present forms were occasioned by the omission of it. Let us ask, therefore, in the first place, in what manner the nominative Zeus, or rather Deus, according to the Aeolic form, was originally written by the Pelasgi. Pelasgi are the Phoenicians who brought the letters to the Greeks. They could not at first have written Deus as delta epsilon upsilon sigma Deus, for the upsilon was an addition to the primitive Greek alphabet, which ended with tau or T, like the Phoenician, Samaritan, Hebrew, Chaldee, and Syriac alphabets. The digamma, on the other hand, was a constituent part of the primitive Greek alphabet, It was the sixth letter in the Greek alphabet, as the corresponding letter was in all the alphabets just mentioned. The word therefore, just like our letter F, is the sixth. The word therefore, which was afterward written Deus, must have at first been written Deus, delta, epsilon, digamma, sigma, which would look like DEFS, but pronounced like with a W, Deus, DEWS. So there, the F is also interchanging with the W, Vav sound, and also written Deus, DIWS, or delta, iota, digamma, sigma. But the genitive and dative of Deus could have been no other than Dios, delta, iota, digamma, omicron, sigma, DIWOS, and Diwi, DIWI, which when the digamma was dropped, because Dios and D. Hence, also we see the reason why Dios and Dies, or D or Day, came to be the genitive and dative of Zeus. So why it's important and interesting to consider that like the change in the drop of the digamma is also because a guy named Betham, who did a lot of research into the all over the world stuff. He was friends with Godfrey Higgins, it goes on and on. He actually, I lost where the quote was, but he actually brings up that not only is there Dies Pietar of the Latin, like a Dies Piter, whatever. We already brought that up, right? Diespiter, which is like Father Dis, basically. There's this Betham guy claims that the Lord of the Air to the ancient Hindus was Diwas Pitar, like Diwas. So there's another, like, if that be true, then you have a very strong link between the I found the quote here. Here we go. This is from Betham. Yeah, he says, "We have said that the name of Zeus is of an oriental origin. It appears, in fact, to be only a varied form of Dis. Zeus is Dis, which in Old Persian denoted the heavens, as Herodotus informs us. In the mythology of India, the Lord of the Air is styled Diwas Pitar, or Diwespiter, as that of the Latins Dies Pater." So I think that's worth considering. And I think part of the symbolism, Dylan might not agree with me on this actually. Hey, what's up, buddy? I think part of the symbolism of the all father type guy, whoever the father is, the big daddy, big G, Zeus, Dis, whoever he might be, think about how Oranos means sky in Greek. I think, yeah, the sun is like the emblem of the top G, but I think actually the all father is the whole sky. And so that's why all the different constellations and all the storybook of the mythology of that character is in each constellation. So like the sun is his chariot, that's his emblem. Where's he at right now? He's wherever the sun's at. But all of the whole sky is actually the whole psychodrama of the being. So yeah. Did we find something we disagree on, or do you agree with that too, Dylan?
Not really. I think you're right. Like I do think you're right. I haven't come across any quotes with that, but you see that Uranos. By the way, respect your elders. Jorge.
Right?
Gabe, good to see you. Hey man, you guys, I'm late to the party, but I skipped cardio
Just
so
in
I
time.
could be here. And I wanted to see if I could interest you in some gravy about the Minoans. Looking a lot like some Native Americans, because you were talking about Creek and Greek the other day. Remember, I had all these tabs open. Yeah, I had all these tabs open that we didn't get to, so I thought it would be fun to pop on and see. Because I haven't really dug deep into this, but I thought that was really interesting.
We were just talking about the digamma, not like di gamma, but like the letter.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I'm gonna go replay because it's something I really wanted to catch, but I didn't realize you guys were doing it, and I had a late day. Anyways,
How was the gym?
There is some.
You were just in the gym, right?
Dude, it was good,
Getting
but the
stronger still?
problem, yeah. So yesterday, last week, I finally, I had been stuck at 70-pound dumbbells for the upright press like this, or incline press, and
Holy shit. I'm just stoked about getting 60 today. I was like, yeah.
yeah. Well, you know how we're supposed, we go like once you get to the rep max, you got to go up 5 pounds. So last week I got to the rep max, so I was all excited to do 75s today, and I couldn't even get one rep for 75. So I had to go back. Like it was like, it felt like a regression, but it's like, oh, something's not ready to, strength isn't there to move on yet. But other
It's
than
still
that,
like
it was
that's
fire.
good strength already. Is a good place to be. So not a
Yes,
bad
sir.
place
Yes,
to
ma'am.
It's not a plateau. Just keep going.
I'm just gonna change my screen a little bit just so it doesn't go to sleep. Where is that? Anyways, so what else is good? Gabe, Jorge, or George, what are you guys up to? You got any gravy for me? I'm here for the soup kitchen.
The ladling. Well, I actually wanted to mention Tuesday, like Things Day, is what you reminded me of earlier, Chance. But yours
There
started
you
with
go,
the D.
dude. That's huge. Okay,
Yeah,
so we were just talking about. I was talking about the digamma removal and how the Deus or Zeus would have theoretically could have been Diwas or Deus, Diws, Diwes, T to D interchange, baby. That's two.
It's Tuesday.
That's Tuesday.
Man. That's it.
Holy shit! It's all the same guy.
It's all this. This is the thing that is like really frustrating to people. Is look at that. Doesn't this is some Minoan gravy? I've just been looking very preliminary. I'm not getting too excited, but I'm kind of getting a little excited because my thing is like I know there's diffusion. I'm just struggling to prove it because there's a lack of inscriptions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where we're at. But yeah, it is all the same system of priest class, and that's what I'm saying. When you see it in these different regions, it's one little affinity or one little thing is not, you still have to investigate. Once you start putting those dots together, and then you compare it with like maybe religious rites or clothing or even a style of like agriculture or food or anything like that, you start seeing that it's mathematically impossible. There wasn't some interaction. The question I'm having is who's doing it, who's initiating it, and why are there no inscriptions? Obviously, they're destroying stuff. But one of the things I had that we didn't get to on Sunday was I was going to go over like the runes that like the Elder Futar, which is like what they say exists all the way back close to the turn of the, from the 1st century to like the 7th century AD. But it has a lot of the same qualities that we've exposed with like the Rosetta Stones and how they just show up in convenient places like in the last 300 years, and only Champollion, the Hidden Hand, can translate it, and he's using divination and all this other stuff. And then there's other people that are coming along and saying, no, it's actually more like the Welsh. And what when you were talking about that digamma and all that stuff, were you guys talking about like the original 16 letters, how like maybe like even like the Welsh, like you'll see this all in these languages, like they'll have like the Welsh, I think has like 36 letters or something, but only 16 of them are the radicals or the originals, right? So like each language has this system everywhere, and they add on, sometimes they subtract, like English will subtract things like the ash, that AE ligature that used to be for like Egypt or Ethiopia, right? But then they take that away and just like, well,
Right.
we can replace it. We don't need to do the ash anymore. So you see like the changes, the digamma used to act like a vav, but also an F. And that's where you see this VWF interchange. Like you'll
Yes.
see all this in all these weird languages. So you can see that, okay, who creates the languages? The priests. Not the kings. We have the term signature, sign, because kings, barons, they weren't literate, a lot of them, so they would have their sign. It wasn't until like it started getting more widely spread and they got more initiated into it that they learned the languages. So so whenever you see letters, it's mathematically impossible it's not coming from priests, especially from the early ones. Now, what do those inscriptions reveal? Are they enlightening the world? or are they just silly ass things like son of, son of Hodor, buried here? That's not really a priestly reason to go out of the way to do some of this shit. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of weird stuff going on, but I sent them to Chance, and I've actually been working on a post that is actually really interesting. If you guys want to get into some of that gravy with some of the early, like look at this. This is supposed to be, this is called the Vimos code. So they found the Vimos hoard. Let's see if I can,
So one thing I'd throw in with the priests is that they then have the Actors Guild disseminate the program to the masses.
Since the beginning.
Yeah. Yep. And
especially in the Greeks.
Yep. And De Vere's, his name is immortalized allegedly through the Shakespearean codices. There's a huge thing about De Vere's and how he is the word that W is basically like a hypersigil, and it all through Shakespeare is like giving all significance to De Vere's. And so it's just fascinating to me that here we are looking at that letter again, and it was such a keystone to the Shakespearean codex.
And isn't there like a lot of I don't want to say conspiracy, but there's a lot of like mystery about who wrote Shakespeare and who was one guy and whatnot. So it could have been the priests.
Yes.
The actors. And what were the first priests called? Hypocrites.
Actors. Yes.
I mean, sorry, the first actors. Yeah, you got me. But they were priests. Sorry.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, you got me.
Right.
What do you guys think about this? Or Chance, if you want to like type this in and bring it up in the share screen on yours, it might be better.
Is this in the email you sent me?
No. This is just because before we do that, I just wanted to show you what I mean by this, where like they find these inscriptions in nature. It's called the Famine Stela, FAMINE space STELA for people who want to just look it up.
Okay, I'll look that up.
And it's like they expect you to believe that this shit has been exposed to the elements for thousands of years, and it's still pristine on the rocks, right? And you see that same thing with like the Behistun inscription in for the cuneiform and stuff. It's on a rock on the side of a mountain, carved. Gets snowed on, like there's all this stuff, and it still looks really crisp and pristine. And it's like, what's going on here? So I think,
and nobody noticed it until recently, fairly relatively recently.
So this is in Aswan, and this is significant only in my opinion because that's where the cataracts begin. So if you were like going by boat, there gets a point where the Nile becomes impassable, and you have to get out and then start up at another part. And so that I just figured I'd say, what do you guys think? Does that look legit to you? Do you think that's possible, that's thousands of years old? So that's dated 332 BC to 31 BC.
I mean, it's worth being suspicious of, for sure.
Agreed.
I mean, that is just right out there in the elements. One thing we know about the sun is anything that's out in the sun gets damaged. Really,
right?
Ask the audience. I'm not on the live stream, but say +1 real, +2 fake, because I'm gonna go watch this. When I'm
I like that.
Well, you just did. You just
real,
asked them. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind is that it's broken, much like the alleged tablets of Moses, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But then famine has a lot of weight behind it. Fama is she's the goddess of rumors, and so to be in infamy, to be a famous person comes with a lot of baggage of people are going to talk shit about you behind your back. There's going to be tons of rumors, so it's almost the fact that they named it that is kind of like puts a lot of propagandistic energy around it,
Isn't it interesting how like the more we start learning and peeling back the layers, the more we realize like a lot of the people that are demonized as like villains were actually like the good guys trying to like fight the empire. You see that a lot in Italy too, where like Machiavelli was like, he was an Italian patriot. He really wanted to see Italy like get its like unification back. And now he's looked at as like a psychopath, and they always misquote him. They say the ends justify the means, and that's a mistranslation. It's really all he wrote was one must consider the final result. So why would you mistranslate that? And
wow, that's a serious skewing.
That's a big one.
Isn't it crazy?
Am I mistaken? But they call translators traitors in Italy.
Yeah, the translator is the traitor. Yeah.
Oh man, I never heard that. That's amazing.
Right. And you know, that's such a great point, because that's something I'm really getting into, is like, most of these people, their life work in the context and the time and the place where they were, it's totally understandable and appropriate for them in their life. But then somebody comes up along posthumously and starts to add and build and utilize and manipulate their life work. And then, and then it kind of leads into Chance's got a great quote. I don't know where that came from, but it's like, if you want to change the world, you have to be willing to give somebody else the credit. Well, that works even for nefarious things too. If you want to change the world, you got to blame somebody else for doing it.
Oh yeah, the quote is, "You can do anything as long as you're willing to give someone else the credit."
That's it. Yeah. Where'd you get that from?
That actually was a quote from like a Peruvian shaman. I found that very interesting.
But he could have been a grifter. You never know. Let me take this. He's like, yes, just let me take everything you've done and do my own thing with it and take all the credit.
That famine stele, though, you know, I'd have to think about it. Maybe my jury is still out, but I do think it's sus. It's worth being suspicious of.
That's where I'm at. Like, so the stuff that I have to share you, we're gonna go status quo. And all I want to ask is it possible that this is a forgery? Like, would this be hard to forge, right? So the next one I want to show you guys is, if you want to type it up, it's called the Vimos Comb. And it's spelled Vimose. Get that, Moshe? Right? Vimos, Vimose. Comb, C-O-M-B. And it's at the National Museum of Denmark. And that's the runes. I mean, it's like, that's their basically.
I totally missed the spelling. Will you say it again? Vimos?
Yeah, no, Vimose, Vimos or Vimos. I don't know how to pronounce it. Forgive me, Nordlings. But it was found in a bog on the island of Funen in Denmark, and it wasn't found. And this is something I wanted for like George and Gabe to pay attention to in the chat. It's not found till 1850 to 1860 AD, right? So again, another thing that nobody notices until the modern era, and it's dated to be from the first few centuries, and it's made out of like antler or whatever. And so I was like, well, what's that? What's like how long would antler last before it rots? And apparently, you know, because the bog is underwater, it doesn't get the bugs and all that stuff. Apparently, it's totally doable. But for those of you who grew up in the 90s, you might have remembered the wooden desks that everybody had and the carvings on them. And that's really all it looks like. There's like nothing exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
This is not in a time where people don't have skills for carving, right? Like, they're making realistic marble statues.
It's a time where actually the time and attention to make something beautiful and ornate was usually taken. You know,
it was available. Yeah.
And we know it's a priest language.
The forefathers looking down on us like, all your shit is sloppy. What are you doing?
Right. Unless, of course, a king did this, right? Which is because they couldn't do nothing. But I, you know what I wanted to mention earlier, I just wanted to throw it out, is that Shakespeare had the king's men as his troupe, you know? So of course it might have been more of an implication of the illiteracy of the whole thing, but this really does look like, it looks like chicken scratch. I mean, I don't want to be so.
Go over the where this is supposed to have come from and the age of it again.
It was found in a bog. Remember how I was telling you, like, one of the ways they find stuff in Ireland and stuff is because when the wars were coming, they would store their valuables in the water so that nobody would be able to find them. And that's why they're found later on, is because the person probably died in battle or whatever, or was forced to flee. But and I'm not saying it's not possible for this to happen. I just wanted to bring it out there. So it's found on an island in Funen in Denmark. It's called the Vimos, I think, hoard, or the Vimos. There's a bunch of different artifacts you can look up. And it wasn't noticed until 1850, 1860 AD. And historically, people know me. I call this like the height of archaeological charlatanry because of all this shit that's coming out. We're getting dinosaurs, everything.
All of a sudden, 1850. You're right.
But I
1850 is a
wanted,
big marker.
yeah, and the thing I wanted to bring to your attention, guys, is like back then, if that is dated correctly, the only people that knew language are going to be the priests or alphabets. And if you know anything about their penmanship and their ability to carve with pen knives and all that stuff, at Pete's sake. Yeah, because they're found in the Pete. Yep. Somewhere someone's squirting because of that.
Someday we'll get. Someday you'll be up here talking to us sometime, Louis.
Yeah, I like Louis. He's a good guy.
He researches like.
Well, you can have him pop on anytime. I like him. But that's the thing is like, why would anybody be writing on this in a priestly language if the people who were only the scribes and all that stuff were not commoners able to write? So what is the purpose of writing on that comb? And that's just something to keep in mind. Could be a priest's wife or whatever is going on. I don't know. Not everybody is. You see plenty of people like who run that priestly system. They got more mistresses than. I mean, more bastard children than anybody, but most people probably had partners in their lives because they were like, rock stars almost.
But, how big is that supposed to be? How wide is that? Was it for animals or for humans?
No, it's just a comb for your hair.
So how big is it?
I don't know. It's
because that might
not. Yeah, it's probably not much bigger. I don't know. I know there are pictures online you can find with the ruler. So chat, Vimos code. 1, it's possible that it's a forgery. 2, it's totally impossible to forge that. Okay. Then you got the Vimos chape or chape. I don't know how to say that, but this is like one of those things like that goes in the pommel of a sword. And so if you want to type, I don't know if you'll be able to find it because I had to like kind of search kind of hard for this stuff. But again, Vimos, Vimose or Vimose. Someone correct me on my pronunciation. And chape 1, CHAPE space 1. And you'll see, I mean, again, keep in mind at the time this is all from the same bog that's not noticed till the 1850s.
Is this the right thing? I don't know if I got.
Yeah, that's it. That's 2. You don't need to bring up 1 or maybe you do. Yeah, that is it. That's it. Only it would just be turned on the side. But yeah, so that's what you're looking at, and we have to like come to the conclusion: like, is this legit or is it not legit?
Oh, I see. It's got runes on it, right? I see a.
Yeah, there's runes on it for sure.
Right, I see a Fehu. Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like it's written in 2 directions. Like it's running one way and then the other, up and down the spine of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So then, if you just type in,
what's important about these is they're claimed to be like some of the oldest.
This is like the Eldar Futhark, but not noticed before the 1850s.
Right.
So it's not noticed in any other period when it was supposed to exist until my concerns with the archaeological people.
Right. Now, if you same holes in it too, they look like they're about the same size as the ones that were in the comb for the 3 sections. Each had a hole on top.
Oh yeah.
So maybe are they trying to? If it's a forgery,
yeah, they could have been used with the same tool. Actually, if it's real,
right. That's one thing that looks the same. That I would say, unlike the chicken scratch.
It'd be cool to. Do we know what it says allegedly? Like, I got my runes book here. I could try to sound it out.
Wikipedia, it says possibly Mariha or Makija. Possibly Mari, the famous one, is the sword of Allah.
Oh, wow.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, according on this most shape.
Wow.
Mari and Allah. Okay.
It's actually Mario's sword. He's a time traveler. Like, I put this in here, bitches. I just wanted to test you to see if you're paying attention.
But like if it was in the realm of forgery, that's the kind of thing they would put on it, and they would be like laughing about it.
Right.
Well, what does it mean? You know what I mean?
Like, I'm not trying to make
even the status quo
like,
can't.
That is it's kind of funny because we're looking at Mari and Allah. It's like, God and goddess right there.
And what were the Maori? Those are those Mauritania.
One other thing, all of these are hair artifacts. And the hair is considered in many cultures still today.
No, this is a sword. This is a sword pommel.
Oh, this is the handle of a sword.
Yeah, but still, I want to hear what you're about to say
like
with
the pommel,
the
the
hair
flat part on the
artifact.
bottom of the hilt.
Yeah, well, the hair artifacts are like the hair is believed to be like your history, your ancestors, your past. Some people still think that it's like dead brain cells. And in like Rasta culture, they believe that the wiser you are, the more hair you have, and you don't want to get rid of your hair because you would be shedding your wisdom. Like Samson, he becomes weak when he loses his hair, and I've even heard that. And I don't think this is across the board, but I think there are some sects of Rasta faith that they actually believe that they will be pulled up by their dreadlocks in the end days. And so the stronger the dreads, the better chance that you have to hold on when Jaja come take you away.
So what you just said there might be a key to diffusion, because the long hair is also sacred to like the Japanese, right? Like the samurai, like that was like really bad to get your hair cut off, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Totally. Yes.
It's like really degrading. So what if there is
if you were like exiled or dishonored, you cut off the top knot, right? We've all seen the samurai movies.
Right, of course.
So if you just
another
type that
so
same
I want to
thing,
say about the possibility of there could be sort of like a middle ground between fake and real, in the sense that maybe not as old as they're said to be, or that it's a real artifact, but then someone scratched the runes on there. And we have to consider that as possible too. I mean, we're not making claims about any of this. We're just opening up a dialogue and asking questions about, like, we're just looking at what some of the oldest claims are to this particular script. And I think there's a huge motivation to, especially in the last couple hundred years, to do some kind of big discovery, even at the cost of honesty. This is, if you can make a discovery that supports what the rest of academia is saying about a particular people or culture, it's like your ticket into the history books, your ticket into tenure. It's really a big deal. So imagine, I just been putting myself in the shoes of being some kind of like researcher, archaeologist type, been grinding for years, getting no recognition, not, and the temptation to do just like, you believe it, you believe that something like what you made up could actually have existed. So you're like, it's only kind of a lie, like they really were a people here and they really did use this language and they really had, artifacts like this. So I'm only slightly being dishonest. Like I can just see the motivation to get a little clout for just a slight transgression of honesty in their mind, to me, it's not that big of a stretch of the imagination. So it's not that that any of this stuff is useless to look at. It's just worth keeping that in the back pocket with most historical artifacts. Yeah.
Well, I think everybody in this space we're over the last 10 years, we've really uncovered some lies that we didn't even realize how bad the lies are. And now with that mindset, a lot of us are turning to history and realizing, oh, this is not just the phenomena of the modern era. Like they've been doing really bad, big lies for a long time. And what is it for? Like the reason I don't get emotional about this stuff is because I set out with the understanding that it might be possible that everything I've ever looked at was within the framework of the lie. And what got me on that was when I was reading the Greek stuff and seeing it translated in English and going, why does it match up to English so well? With like the rhymes and all this stuff. And I'm just like, something feels real off about this.
Yeah, when things rhyme.
It's like a chicken, Patrick Teller. They found like a chicken leg. And they were like, it's a
The dude who came up with the T-Rex was just slightly stretching the truth. I'm not saying that any level of lying is any less of a, transgression against natural law than slight or large, but I'm just putting myself in the mind, of one of these potential archaeologists, and there's a big temptation there. I think
you're right.
Chance, can you just put number 2 in the same thing that you wrote, but and get the other pommel just so they can see that?
Yeah. This one's very small too. It's like less than 10 centimeters. I've already got it pulled up on my other window. Here we go.
So that gives them a foot into some form of immortality. You know, if you can have your name kept on the books
That's what I'm
for
saying.
even for whatever period of time, and that's what's fascinating is how, you know, history is an avenue to immortality, and they're long gone by the time we realize that they were fucking with us.
Well, and the whole system of authority as truth rather than truth as the authority that we've been indoctrinated into as a civilization for God knows how long means that so much of this stuff can fly under anybody's radar, get established, and then more things get established on that. It's like if you build a foundation on a bad foundation, like bad foundation, house of sand, whatever, you know.
Yeah,
that's how it seems to be with history for sure. And there's also, this is going to be more of a far out conjecture, but I sometimes wonder about whether or not things are found because they're being looked for, not even in necessarily a disingenuous way, but like I really like fringe stuff. So the whole idea of like psychic archaeology is potentially like some of those accounts are also fraudulent, but that what the earth actually turns up, you know, whenever what's in the box, is the cat alive or dead? That there's some level of because I really think this is a mental realm we're in. And also I think that it's a plane of, as Topher likes to put it, like this is the plane where people get what they want. They get what they wish, whether for good or bad. And so is the whole function of the past, as we consider it, kind of illusory, and it's in a type of flux as much as the future, and what we look for and what we expect to find also flavors what we find to some degree. I know that's like very wishy-washy and it's not something you can really plant a flag in, but I consider that possibility because, like, you know, my dad is a professional treasure hunter actually. And he finds stuff because like he has this sort of childlike exploration mindset and how he's doing it. And it's, I don't know, he's able to sort of just manifest what it is he's wishing to find, and he does. And I wonder what that has into play with things like the past being kind of as mutable or illusion as much as the future is not real yet. That there's this present moment reality, and we're all trying to find needles in haystacks, you know, expecting that there's some sort of solid. We're trying to find the canvas that all the universe is painted on, and we keep pulling things off, clearing things out of the way, and it's just a mirror. It's like there's nothing there. That's all in my head too. I know that's more, you know, flimsy and all that.
I have no counter to that.
That's good. I have an addition, perhaps. I have an addition. Think about bogs in general, right? Why are they suddenly finding things in bogs that they weren't finding? I mean, it's a crapshoot, like you were saying. But I'm always thinking about the way where what we see growing up. If anyone watched Labyrinth, there's the bog of eternal stench, right? And you wouldn't dream of ever daring to go near that thing, right? But if you had no idea what a bog really was, and then suddenly you're presented with the idea of searching for things in bogs, you're probably not wanting to do it anymore because you watched this movie and they as usual, the narrative tells you it's a terrible idea. Stay away from bogs, you know?
Loch Ness.
The bog witch.
Right, the bog witch. Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking of the C to G thing, bog and bach.
Guys, that sounds like a monster that a witcher might come across. And I think one of the things people don't like about us is, to speak in metaphor or in allegories, we survived the trials of the grasses. So now we're witchers and we see the monsters. We can go into the houses of God and we see the monsters, and the rest of the people can't see what we're seeing. And the monsters know that we can see them, and they know that we're witchers. So what they have to do is they have to steer perception and make us the bad guys for questioning the narrative. We're the crazy ones. We're the conspiracy theorists. When we're just literally trying to help people,
we're the
take
grifters.
Out the monsters. Yeah. And so that's what I really loved those book series, because I felt like, The Witcher, he takes out all these monsters, but the people don't appreciate them.
You read the actual books?
Oh yeah, the
Fives
video
over
game's
here.
the best, dude.
Dude, the
I
Witcher
hated
book
the last.
series
I hated how the book
that
series
is
ended.
real man's fantasy, Dylan.
I love it.
The
I
Witcher
love The
book
Witcher.
series. Maybe you guys have seen the Satanic Cuties Flick show. Maybe you played the actually good game series, but the books, man, they are something else. People should read the Witcher novels. Just leaving that out there. Go do that.
I didn't like how they made him simp after a prostitute. She was and what happens? He dies. Not to spoil it for people. The last book is it's almost like a different author wrote it. I did not like how it concluded, but he dies. I don't like how he died. I don't think he broke the code. He took a side in Empire, and he died in battle fighting for one of the sides of the Empire. And so I do like that about it, because it shows you're a Witcher. Before everything else, guys, you can't get caught up in the government and stuff and the priests. You can move between everybody. You can be friends with everybody. Provided that they're maintaining some sort of socially calibrated code of honor, but you can't take sides, because that once you take a side, there's no going back from that.
Yeah,
that is so true in these type of studies as well. That you take a side in the form of take on an identity. I'm this, I'm that, and that it's gonna cause bridges to get burned someday. It's going to cause feelings to get hurt. It's going to cause cognitive dissonance if something gets interrupts what you thought your identity meant. And at the end of the day, what is it worth? Is it really worth it to hold this label of I am a whatever? I know we're calling ourselves Witchers, but that's just a metaphor.
That's just an analogy. Yeah, we're not actually.
We're not.
I mean, maybe Gabe actually's got some savanti. Might be some yellow cat-like eyes under there.
I just think the four of us could probably, George could be our bard.
Nice.
Yeah, for real.
We could probably.
I'm in.
We could do a troop. We could totally do
Oh man, that'd be sick. I think that brings up an interesting point too, is that only the very, very best and potentially slightly luckiest storytellers can actually end something. It is a major issue with movies and books. Endings can be, they either have to do that perfect Hollywood ending right at the end. You get the kiss at the sunset and everything's great. You murdered the bad guy, everyone clapped in the theater. Wow. What does that do to your culture, right? And then so many books, so many novels, they just seem to kind of just right at the end, they just cram it. I got to end this thing. All right, it's over. I hit my 500-page quota. I'm good. The endings are a huge issue.
That's such a good point. I'm going to dig it out of my notes.
Realism falls apart because there's no such thing as the end in reality.
Yeah, right. We're ending these things.
Right. And that's been a big topic lately. Chance and I were talking a week ago about how the culture of miniseries actually sends people to bed with no closure. You don't get get catharsis. And then you go and you process in your subconscious, and there's a sense of no resolution. And then that goes on for a couple decades, where people are going to sleep with no sense of closure. And next thing you know, you're you got a whole culture that's prone to neurotic outbreaks and believing in whatever the news is going to tell them.
No, you're right. And that's the C to F sharp. That's the dissonance that it's waiting to resolve, and it doesn't. So, wow, man.
That might have been one of the most profound things I've ever, and you've said a lot of profound things over the years, but that might be the one we lack. We are a culture without closure.
Right, man. Right. For me in martial arts, I learned that, the real high grade performers at the end of the game, they would say a prayer at the end and ground their energy at the foot of the instruments. And I was like, that is grace. That is grace, giving thanks at the end of the meal. Mm-hmm. And so I changed my game right then and there. I was converted. And, I learned that, that's actually what it's all about, is saying thanks even after you get your ass kicked, saying thanks for getting your ass kicked. You know what I mean? But then I started to just kind of see how we do engage in ritual and ceremony, all of us, in various ways. In science, they call it procedure, but that's just ritual. But we don't close it off. We don't give respect in the end and say, thanks for kicking my ass. Yeah, pretty profound. Thank you.
And because George,
real quick shout out. Thank you, Logan, for the super chat over on Rockfen. You the man, most
Awesome.
consistent super chatter.
Amazing.
Yeah, people should join our Telegram group, and we'll circulate around again his awesome scope work too. Incredible stuff.
Cool.
And then I want to just hop on also on what you just said, Gabriel, that the closure thing. We talked about that with Carrie last week about opening sacred space, closing sacred space. And I'm finding it, or so far, I've actually been finding it challenging to do it. That at the end of the, it's almost like part of taking your time and not being in a rush, oddly enough. I've been noticing like, oh, wow, the ceremony, the tuning session was a few hours ago. And I'm just now remembering maybe even the next day, I didn't close the space. Like it's easy to remember to give thanks, open it up, but closing it. And that is also about grounding and, letting go of any of that moment and going into the next moment. There's something about that. And it's almost like we're in this sequelitis resistant to the moment of closure. It's a big part of the culture. And I've been trying to remember that as well. And
that's a good
reminder again tonight.
That's a good neologism. I like it.
Sequelitis. George said too, with like the movies and the book endings, right? Like it's not just the minis, it's everything. But then you look at like to another degree, one of the things that's really difficult about relationships in general is very few people end relationships in a professional way. They just like disappear. They'll like, it's like you go from being someone's like one of the biggest parts of your life to now they treat you like a stranger. That's another thing. And so the more that happens to you in life, the more that's going to fuck you up emotionally. Right. So it's like, not to sound like someone who's like, oh, you got to be pious, whatever, but you need to be weary of like getting involved in relationships with people, like intimate relationships, because when they don't work out, that's like a huge void that takes a while to heal sometimes, especially if you like really plan something, and all of a sudden it doesn't work out. Like it can really sidetrack you.
Yeah.
But if you guys are willing, because Chance has a bunch of really good, he has all the Elder runes ready to go, the Elder Futhark runes. But before we get into that, I wanted to see if you guys, I came across this the other day. They're called the Naga helmets, or Nega, like Negau.
What you talking about, nigga?
Nega. Oh my God! Imagine if we got like canceled because they didn't understand.
It's over.
It's like this is an Etruscan, old Italian from Slovenia, right? Found in Slovenia, but people understand like how close Slovenia is, Austria. There's parts of like Italy that still speak German, whatever. They're called spelled Negau space helmet, right? And so these are found with inscriptions, right? Again, we're dealing with a similar thing found in 1812, dated to circa 450 BC to 350 BC. But these are like way older, right? Because they're from the Etruscan Empire. Now, could the runes on them be scribed in? Yes. Could the artifacts be real? Yes. Could both be real? Yes. But we will let the chat. It will be interesting to see what the chat has to say. However, they thought these were like runes at first. And this is what I'm trying to tell people. Like, no, the runes, even if you just go look up on Wiki, whether it's Elder Futhark, whether it's younger Futhark, they're of old Italic origin. And I don't know why they say that, because if you just look at I guess I do, because there's some other stuff after, like the Ashi and all that, whatever. But what they mean by that is Etruscan. And it's almost like there's like this cover up that I'm sitting here like, why is everybody trying to hide the basic reality? And what they thought was like original, like Elder Futhark or something like they thought it was like the early transition. It just turned out to be Northern Etruscan. And that's what it says. You can see that. Right? But what's interesting on that is in the inscriptions, there's Celtic and German names. And I'll just read you this. Many interpretations of this inscription have been proffered in the past, but the most recent interpretation is by Tom Markey in 2001, who reads the inscription Harikasti Teva. And right there, I'm seeing Greek, right? Like if you look at this, dude, it's like, that's a chi, or chi, sorry, in Greek, right? It's like acts like a ch, right? And it says Haragast, the priest, from Tevas, or Tewas, God. And if you remember, we did the Phoenician origin of Tur, and that rune that represents him is Tiwas.
Well, even there, Tiwas, back to our talk about the digamma.
Yeah, there it is
We're
again.
looking at views. You know, we're
those
looking at
things,
Theo,
all those
Deo.
things.
Yeah. Iota, upsilon, eta, sigma. And so another inscribed helmet also found at the site bears several names, mostly Celtic, followed by the religious titles. Now, at least this jives with what I'm talking about with the priests, so that's good. Now, Markey believes that the text is Germanic, meditated through Runic, which accounts for some of the difficulties in the reading, such as the lack of declensional ending in the first element, harikasti, but you're seeing hari in the beginning, H-R-I, right? And so in Etruscan, H-E-R-I, that's going to be like holy. But in Indian, in Sanskrit, you're going to be things pertaining to saviors. And then as Odin, was it Odin you were saying is sometimes called Heryan or something like that? And it's like the Lord of Hosts, but it's also like the Lord of, it's like
it's Lord of Hosts.
But it also has something to do with army too. And so that's why that's what the army, the army and the hosts get. And it's just like,
I'll find the word. I have it written down here in this big Duke book. It's not very many pages back.
But
this is Nahavamal. There is one of the epithets of Odin is Herjan or Herjan, Herjan, and transliterated to English, Lord of the Host.
And Jan is going to be Janus, right? So
yeah, Janus, Jan. Yeah, exactly.
And the years reckoned in January.
Some of the other epithets of Odin that I wrote down from the Prose Edda: God of Cargoes. So, you know, that sounds very Mercury to me. Then third highest, 3D. They call it 3D, Thridi.
Well, if that's 3 portions of the year, that
third highest.
The winter solstice, because that third highest is the lowest. If you
it sounds like thrice great as well.
Capricorn.
Thrice great, yeah.
Capricorn is the lowest, equator, and then winter.
And then there's another one that I thought was interesting, Hnikkar, which or Hnikkar, I don't know.
Maybe these helmets are of him.
They transliterate that to on driver.
We're gonna get strikes.
We're done, dude.
That's racist.
It's over.
Hnikkar, on driver, which I think they just mean they're something driving something else on, but you know, on is also the name of the sun. Just pointing that out. And then bale worker, bolverker, bale worker.
Wow.
You got Ver, which is
I don't know if they're right about calling him bolverker, meaning bale worker. I think maybe they may be that language may be more revolving around bowl or bale than bale as in a bale of hay. Just my 2 cents. Maybe.
I didn't even think about a bale of hay.
So good after all.
Well, so with these inscriptions on the helmets, right? He said formerly some scholars have seen the inscription as an early incarnation of the runic alphabet, but it is now accepted that the script is North Etruscan proper and precedes the formation of the runic alphabet. And we could keep going, right? This is a post that I'm working on right now. It probably won't come out for a couple months, but I want to show you another one. So if you type in the Meldorf fibula, so it's MELDORF space fibula, FIBULA. Again, not found till 1979. And according to Wiki, here's the controversy. It revolves primarily around whether their graphemes are to be understood as runic, proto-runic, or Latin characters. So in other words, they don't know. In my opinion, this is likely a forgery when you see it. It's like it's claimed to be an artifact from 160 AD. And I can't click on any of these just because I'm in it hasn't posted yet. But yeah, chance we'll get it.
Yeah, I got it right here.
And so if you look at that, it's basically IDIN, Eden.
Whoa.
And they don't know if it's they don't, and that's just anybody's guess. Like you're just assuming, but even that, they don't. You just saw that they don't know if it's Runic, Proto-Runic, or Latin characters, right? So I don't know what this like aversion to people not recognizing that all the runic systems come from Etruscan, Old Latin, or Old Italian, I should say, Old Italic.
Yeah, it doesn't. I also think resistance to that idea, even though it's a kind of a mainstream idea, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's not like they get everything wrong, but I think it's important maybe to say for those out there who have some tangled up identity that is in some way not liking that idea that the runes come from the Italian script, it doesn't take away any kind of like divinatory value of the system.
Oh yeah,
in my opinion, someone can make up an oracle deck right off their head. You could make a deck of just words that you wrote down on index cards and shuffle it up and use it for divination. The only thing is this: there's actually a lot of energy and a lot of people using something for divination, the way the runes are. I think that even adds to the sort of, I don't know, the mystic thing that you're able to tap into. I think that it's all perfectly valid in terms of the ways they're used as sort of like spiritual systems. I think that's great. It doesn't devalue anything to just show where sort of the chain of custody has come from in their origins.
Yeah, and I guess that might be. I don't focus on that. Sorry, Gabe. Just want to make I focus on history. So divination, you can use anything. You could use chopsticks, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I focus on history. Do you want to know the truth or not? And for me, it's I don't believe anybody listening to me. If you do not serve truth first, you can kiss any delusional service to God that you think you're doing, because truth must come first. And when I get corrected, the only thing that comes out of my mouth really is, oh, thank you. Like, I want to be right. Like, that's my goal, is to be right. Otherwise, I can't serve truth. And then I can't serve God. So for me, I don't have any attachment to this shit other than going where it goes. And if you can correct it, correct it. Now we're ready to get into whatever Chance wanted to get the emails after this.
Oh, yeah. I just was looking at this today, Dylan. What do you think of the, have you seen the liver of Pia Cinza?
Yeah.
Getting into some augury
I'm not
reading.
adept. I'm not adept enough to decipher this.
This is Etruscan.
What do you so what do you think about it? They're using this to claim that the Etruscans had a 16 house astrology system, which I think is very interesting in conjunction with the 16 letter alphabet.
My only contention with that is as follows. From what I gather to the older sources, there is not enough writings of the Etruscans left behind to decipher the language. So then I would say, how do you know that that's what they're saying in those inscriptions? That would be my only. That's the only thing that I would offer to that. But if anybody, if somebody somehow figured out how to do it, then maybe it is that. I don't know.
But it is. It's pretty cool. This is supposedly a sheep liver, and it's like a guide to how you would read the entrails, the augury. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I
was looking at that today. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's just a cool artefact.
Well,
I was about
real. Is it real?
Gabe,
another question.
Hold on. Yeah. Why is Gabe not talking about how Piacenza? Is that what it looks from where I'm saying? The eyes merge and it looks like placenta.
Right.
It does.
Okay.
We got to placenta within 15 minutes tonight. So
right.
Oh man,
it's coming back around.
So there's a whole lot going on here. For one, 360 divided by 16 gives you 22.5, which is a very sacred Venusian number. 225-day orbital period of Venus. So that's a very interesting math. Now, also, divination per the liver has a hailing back to Prometheus, as Prometheus, his liver was extracted daily by the vultures. Prometheus in the stars, he is Andromeda there at the on the climb of the Analema, right at the X mark. And then the vulture falling down and descending upon him, that's the other end of the Analema crossing the X, which is Vulturnalia. So I just wanted to throw all that in the mix that we that augury reading and the liver aspect is it does have a Promethean spirit about it. But then I also chance on what you were saying about how it doesn't take anything away from the divinatory systems. You know, something that this is kind of a really, I think, an important component spiritually. You know, the northern groups took a lot of pride in the power of the individual, and the more southern collectives were really into working as a team. You know, and you could even go to Sparta. You know, the Spartans, the phalanx. They learned the technology of the phalanx and how you can lock those shields so that your left-hand man is literally keeping you alive. And if the man to your left, if he falls, then you fall. And, you know, that's also what kind of gets me is how that's actually, that's also kind of based on the technology of Gemini. The constellation Gemini is two brothers in arms locked together. And so that interdependency, it's both cosmological, but it's also psychological. And so I think a lot of what people
watch The Prisoner, dude.
And so I think a lot of people who have that northern Germanic bend to their cosmology, it's beautiful in the aspect of you know, go it alone, being independent, self-reliant. All of that is badass, and it only gets stronger when you find a brother in arms who's equally as self-reliant, who you can see eye to eye. You know, and that's how you overthrow all that collectivism. But when it comes to divination, something really neat happens. And this is kind of touches on my project is, you know, I believe that the tarot is for a one-on-one relationship between you and the cards, or you and the reader who you've chosen to be your medium. Like, you know, when I go to watch Kaylee on Moonday Tarot, I am giving my consent to let her be my medium, because I know that that's what I'm there for. It's all transparent. But what I'm doing on my channel is I'm finding out that the filmmakers are casting one tarot read to a collective of people who did not know they were going into the theater to have a tarot reading. And the effect of that is that there's a collectivist tarot psychological archetypal spell happening that the people didn't know that's what they were getting involved in when they went in that dark room.
Non-consensual tarot.
Non-consensual taroism. Yeah, so there is something really important about that, like where all the terms of the agreement are on the surface and we all know what we're getting into, and that's why I could choose Kaylee to be my reader. But when I go to fucking Marvel Comics and I see fucking tarot and archetypes getting thrown around, I'm like, nah, wait a second. Something's not being transparent. There's something in the subtext here that they're not telling us.
Taroism, terrorism.
Right,
and what
does
tarot mean? The law.
Right.
Or no, sorry. No. I was thinking Torah. But it's kind of like an anagram.
It relates. No, it totally relates.
I made a mistake, guys. Oh my God.
Yeah, and even, you know, I've never really thought about this before, but just so close phonetically. Tarot, and say it without a silent T at the end. Tarot. Taut. It's like, you know, it's not a far stretch at all. Taut.
And the R in the Ashi, that shit, the like R English R, is a D. Just throwing it out there.
The Ashi? What's the Ashi? Remind me.
That's like the Italian language after the Etruscans. Kind of like in a region nearby, but you know, it might have grown up in like the later part of it, but like, yeah, it's like between them and like Latin and stuff. So it's like Etruscan in some spots, but it goes, I think it does go right to left, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry, left to right. Kind of, I think like that vase. Remember that vase you had with the Matheson guy, where it was juice, but it was but it was still like left to right, but it was like looked like Etruscan. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I see Buddha or Thoth everywhere that there's a T to a T. Wherever there's a starts with a T, ends with a T, I'm suspicious there.
Even the word total, tot al, right? Al is another one of those old archetypes for God. Tot, you know, it's like it's there. That's what I'm saying. There's a system.
Yeah,
You
totem.
guys want to get into these other
food
darks?
I do. I want to make a quick announcement. I saw Mike Winter in the chat. I want to remind everyone a second time that tomorrow at noon Central, I'm going to be on Alpha Vedic. So come hang out with us live with Mike and Dr. Berlando. It's going to be a great time. Excited to join them.
Oh, dude, I thought you were talking about another Mike. I thought that was no. There's also Chance's episode with Mike on Parallel Systems Broadcast is coming out tomorrow as well.
Oh, it is?
Oh yeah. So you're gonna be like double fisting like Gabe over here. He's double fisting.
It comes in waves, man. Like there was a good couple of weeks with that where I wasn't on any other shows, and now I've got like 4 to promote at once. It's funny how that works. It's like a cycle, but yeah, come. Well, I'll promote that on the Telegram too. You guys should just be, if you like what we do here, be on the InnerVerse Telegram channel. I'll throw that in the live chat links, but it's the best way to stay, up to date with all the content, and there's a lot of it. So yeah, we're going to get into, but yeah, Alpha Vedic, the Alpha Cast tomorrow. Be there at noon Central. It's going to be fun, or catch the replay.
And everybody,
yeah, we're going to get into some of the stuff Dylan had shot me in an email. Look at more of the oldest dated anyway examples of runic artifacts.
So the first one is the how would you say that? Is it Arstad? Forgive me.
I don't know what the little circle on the top of the A makes it sound like. But it looks like
basically Arstad, like the A in Skal. Skal. So that one.
Oh man, I got a Air 404 on that link.
No way.
Of course.
I'll post it in the comments so you guys can bring it up too.
I just searched within the website though, and I think I may have found it, but I'm okay. Cool. There's images here. Okay.
So it's runesdb.eu, and then it's going to be whatever else. There's a million others. Yeah.
That looks like what it was supposed to look like, right, Dylan?
Yeah, that one looks like the one that was in Rhode Island, like the ones that are found in America, though. So
talk about that too.
Well, so there was a runestone found where I grew up, and there's also one that I have got a post on this coming out that was called. Where was that guy in Massachusetts? Just Dighton. Was it Dighton? Where's the guy that just got arrested for the leak in Massachusetts? I think it's Dighton. But so there's been runestones that have been that are alleged to be real, right? Again, there's nothing to date it. What they said is because it's using a hooked X. That means they stopped using that around 1300 AD, so it's at least that old. And I don't know, like without other artifacts, it's just a one-off. And I think that's what's so challenging about a lot of these stuff is there's no other artifacts to really tell a story. And going back to this thing I want people to keep in their mind, the world is not being enlightened by these runestones. Like, even if it was like waterfall, 200 paces, whatever, like if there was something like dangerous, just something that was like that necessitated going through this effort to inscribe these things. And you just see these like mediocre inscriptions that don't really enlighten anybody on anything. And a lot of times the interpretations are just very muddied. And so this Arstad stone, this is one of the first rune stones of the Elder Futhark. It's externally dated to 390 to 590 AD, but guess what year it was found in? 1855. So nobody noticed it until 1855. So audience, 1, if it's legit, if it can't be forged, 2, if it's possibly forged. I'm gonna go back and watch and see what people think. When you guys are ready to go on the next one, we'll go on the next one. If you guys want to comment.
Quick funny thing to add here, because I always picture this when I see this kind of quality, this type of, if you want to call it quality. And if you know Monty Python on the Holy Grail, somebody wrote in Aramaic in a cave, and he was dying as he wrote it, and he wrote his death. It always looks like somebody's rushing to get something out of the death. Right. So it looks like somebody's on their deathbed. I don't mean to joke about it, but somebody's on their deathbed, like rushing to get this inscription out. It's never clean and polished, just like you're saying. You're totally right.
And keep in mind, this isn't like 9,000 BC, guys, where this would be like an incredible feat. This is a time where they're carving and mining marble and like all these amazing things. Yeah. Maybe not marble. But they're
That's
carving
exactly,
like
that's seriously a
realistic.
good point, because at, you know, contemporary to the date that they're giving to this, people were doing incredible things
Right.
artistically in all kinds
And
of
Italy
places
is
of the world.
divided in two. Like Italy is like, you see, like, because Italy was Celtic and Germanic, right? And as the empire increased the traffic from all over the world, we were tasting the beauty of the world. So a lot of our ancestors, you know, were mixed, whatever, right? But the further north you go in Italy, it's more Germanic. And this, to me, if I were like somebody who identified as Norse, whatever, this would be like insulting to me. To thought my people were only capable.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. I'm actually a
Right.
champion of the Germanic people. I feel a very close affinity. I grew up basically in a German household because my best friend from kindergarten's mother was German, from Germany. They own land in the Black Forest. And so like I grew up in this stuff, so I know a lot about the culture or whatever. And I take great pride in the German people. And I see there's a lot of demonization of them, especially with the freaking Mussulmans, those Turks. Am I missing something?
You know,
I thought I was
PK's
gonna
being a
laugh.
wise ass.
So I'd carve that shit on a rock tomorrow.
Oh, that's so true. He also said, PK also said something about the liver in Mesopotamia. And that's really important because think about, I'm so confident, not to, go on a Gardinian tangent, but our blood flow is so important to, I think, our disease. I think almost all of our ailments are a result of stagnating blood, and the liver has a huge deal in cleansing that, allegedly. So I don't know. But I'm just saying,
Right.
I think I would be insulted if somebody was telling me, and literally at a time where like people had incredible skills, modern tools, and this is the best that we're coming from for the early sources of language. And I'm sure there's going to be excuses as to why that is, but I don't know. That's where I'm at with it.
It almost kind of smells like they're trying to reinforce the concept of a caveman, and specifically a German caveman. You know, and the fact of the matter is, our ancestors were badasses beyond measure. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And
germs
that's
are
what
gonna get
the
you.
whole spirit world gravy is about at the end of the day. That's what getting to trying to get what we can of the true history and away from the fake story is about. Claiming the birthright of badass ancestors, and then maybe like looking around and deciding we'd like to be more like the badass ancestors and less like the people on Wall-E.
Right. Exactly.
So that Mahmud, that Turkish spy, I'm going to publish that account. So he's spying for the Ottoman Empire in Paris, and he's talking about. He's literally like making fun of the German people. This is the greatest fucking like historical perspective I've ever seen. He literally is making fun of the Germanic people. He says their horses are like used for plowing, so they're not fast, because the Arabian horses, they're used to like some fast fucking steeds, right? But he's talking about how the horses are slow and hardy or whatever, like them. He's just kind of like basically degrading them. And this is all leading up right before the Battle of Vienna. And so what ends up happening is the Ottomans try coming through for that final push, and who whooped their ass? Germanic people. Farmers. Don't go to war against farmers. They're used to life and death. They'll fuck you up, dude. That's what happened in World War II. I mean, come on. Look at the Russians, man. These people... This is what I'm saying. I think the runes are not legit, but I could be wrong. Because the next one is, again, the Enang stone. Enang stone. I don't even know how to say that. Someone else can figure that out.
Einang.
Yeah, Einang.
That's how I would say it.
It
If
looks
I was
like
reading
Asian
it for your audiobook.
Yeah. And so is that Greek though? Is it Greek? Is it whatever? I don't know. But you got that one up yet? Yeah, so guess what? Guess this same thing. It's allegedly created in the 4th century. But guess when it was discovered? 1938. Why isn't anybody discovering this stuff earlier? And this is guys. This is the foundation of Elder Futhark. It's not based on anything that was discovered a long time ago. This is what it's based on.
Also, in the text, it refers to supposedly Read it right here. It may be the earliest inscription to mention the word runo for rune. That to me, that's like, oh yeah, Holy Grail. This is the
Look, it
artifact.
even says rune. It's legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I would, if I was a forger, that's what I would do. Just saying.
And
You know,
it
Like, it's
two
almost like
syllables, too.
childlike.
Yeah.
What were you saying, George?
Oh, I was saying that runo, it's disyllabic now. Like, why is it 2 syllables all of a sudden? It's just far off.
Just today, this is really obscure, but help me out. Is theos, doesn't that in Greek have a also relate to a runner? That
That I don't know.
I believe that, like, I'm listening to Socrates, and he's talking about the nature of words and names, and are they divine? Is the nature of the name within the sound of the word? Cratylus. It's Socrates' dialogue on the Cratylus, and I'm pretty sure he says that in Greek the gods are called the theos, and he says, and doesn't that make sense because they much like they call planets, it meant wanderers. So
running on the tracks of the sky. Yeah.
Right,
Circuit of-
yes.
That's the sevenfold city of Troy and of Rome.
right.
That's exactly
So
it.
I'm thinking about runners and runes, and also the idea of symbols being divine and having being imbued with magical value.
And they're both
just
based off of like motion.
Right. And
Because I think runo means like secret and like whispers. There is like a wind to it, like run like the wind type of deal. There is like a
Right.
That's the same meaning as agam, secret.
yeah, secret. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Of course.
And the word trexe with the T is to rush or to hurry. So that has another T at the beginning. So maybe that's another similar.
This is what got me is like the other thing. Look, it's called Futhark. It's named after the first 6 letters or whatever, right? Well, what are all these alphabets named after? They were named after the first letters. Beth Louise Neon, Boboleth. This is what like people like Higgins and stuff helped me discover is this is a system. And if you look at the root letters, they all come from this 16-letter system. Right. And then they're either added on, subtract, whatever, but not always used. They're there, but they're not always used. Like even like I think the early Phoenician and the early Etruscan only had 13 letters that they used. So one or two, is this legit? Is that inscription
we gotta
legit?
say what the inscription translates to.
Oh yeah, do it.
Is Goldguest painted this runic inscription, or I Goldguest inscribed the runes. So basically, it's like like why would you even do that? I don't understand what Dylan's saying about this not enlightening anyone or containing any useful information. Is it the only thing useful about that inscription would be if you were the guy who discovered it, like, oh, this is the perfect inscription to have a great discovery. I don't know. That's all I can say about it.
It's like the old Johnny was here,
a tree.
Exactly. I was
exactly
here.
It. Johnny was here.
Yes, 1988.
School desk.
Dude, I don't know.
So I've got another random thought about the idea, because runes are in the shape that they are, such that they can be carved into trees, and that's why they're minimal rounded shapes. They're all straight. That's what they tell us is the reason for them to be so straight. Now, what comes to mind, and this is just free ball association, all caps letters. All caps letters are, the public facing name that draws you into the public. We know about the legal system and all what the name de gloire, but it's also, it's yelling, it's screaming. And like, the guy who walks through town and he's like, 12 o'clock and all is well. That's a public notice. Yeah, you got it. It's public notice, and he's yelling out loud. So there's some aspect of all of this putting us into the public. And in law, the public is the common. And the private is the ascended masters, those who work in equity, the unnameable, the clean ones, the higher class. And I always see this divide, the two pillars, the Jachin and the Boaz, and there's the sullied masses are always in the public, and they're it's like when Reagan let all the crazy people out of the insane asylum. Well, guess what happened when he did that? We are all now considered insane. Our essences have been blended, and we are now the one and the same with the people that he let loose into the sullied masses, and they are hiding on the private side. And so I just wanted to make that strange association with the all caps straight nature of these letters, the screaming of all caps in law, and the fact that it puts us all out in the public, where public notice is still a huge part of what revelation of the method that we decode when we do film. They're putting us on notice.
Did you say a word called neguar? You said something I think might be important, but I didn't understand.
Your nom de guerre. Your all caps name is considered your war name.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's the war name of war. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's your battle name.
Just reminded me. Yeah. And so for people who are more like Latin, that like guerre in Spanish, it's the same war, that G, and the GU or G is like Bill, Will, Guillerme, right? It's that GBW interchange. But that helmet was called Naga. And so I wonder if there's a connection to that. And then in Mexico, they have the naguals. They're like their natal animals based on the signs. And I'm
interesting.
Saying, like, is this all this name of war? This I don't know.
It's part
it
of
just
the
made
system,
me think of
dude.
that. That's why I asked.
It's part of the system. I was just thinking about this idea of the second name last night. All in the context of ancient history being mythology, right? So Higgins has a quote here where he says, "There is scarcely one history, perhaps not one, which does not contain more religious fable than truth." And then he goes on to talk about the 12 Caesars and the 12 signs of the zodiac. And anyway, like Julius Caesar is like a title given to him. Jesus Christ is a title given to him. The Buddha, the Buddha is a title given to him. So basically, again, a Higgins quote, "There is scarcely a name in very ancient history, either sacred or profane, which was not an adopted or second name." So basically the Christian name, or the name given with a reference to the supposed quality of or office of its owner, like the fact that a lot of people's last name was like Smith or Baker or whatever. So the point is, this legal naming of things, every time you get a new name bestowed on somebody in a so-called historical story, where they're like taking on a name for their office or title, which we see a lot in the Roman history, a lot in Greek supposed history, that is probably the mythos. We're probably looking at the same mythos over and over again, like Jesus the Christ. The whole straw man story going on over and over again. And also it applies to where you can take a name and see that it's actually referring to their office or referring to their title, like John the Baptist, John being kind of an occulted Yoni, name of Yoni, right? The dove, and all the dove symbolism that goes along with that character. So sometimes it's a little more below the surface, but that their name is actually more one of these titles of office and given to you as like it's their name. But so just watch out for this whole phenomenon of the second name or the special name, whether it's being given to you in history or not, as a history or as a mythology. It's mythology when you see that. In my opinion, it's part of the system, right? And so they've kind of like pulled us all into that system with what you're talking about, the nom de guerre, the straw man, the all caps, the last name, all of that, etc.
So what's the nom de plume then? What's nom de plume? I've heard that too.
Yeah, that's your writer's name. It's like if you're a ghostwriter, it kind of goes back to what Chance was saying about if you want to change the world, give somebody else the credit, that kind of thing. But you know that an esquire lawyers take on this title of I'm the special boy. Esquire is it's the same thing. It's like this a persona or a mask, so to say, that makes them, the priests basically. And it's fascinating.
A lot of Italians. A lot of
that?
Italians when they come over here, because people who come from like the Italian system, they understand the system. So when they come to America, they'll change their last name by like one letter or something, because that will be the legal thing that won't affect their family name. They know about all this shit. You see this all the time.
You're right.
Like in the mobs and stuff.
That comes up in a lot of interesting places. Like even one of Spinoza's defining conversations as a student, he was listening to two of his gurus, and they were discussing spiritually about what happens when a person changes their name. Can they become, will it change the fate? Like, a lot of people believe that the angels have your name in the book of life is already written when you're born. Now, if you go and change your name, are you messing with the magic of that system? So yeah, that's fascinating that when people come over, they go through a one-letter name change, and maybe their destiny can be, maybe their destiny can be altered some way. That's funny. I like it. I like the idea.
The next one on the table, unless you guys want to say something, is the one that I think is like probably the most legit out of any of these, and it's called the Tombstone. Tune. So it's all about George and his bardic.
Bardic nature.
You could write like a theme song, the Tune song. But if chance bring that up, you have that chance. It's Tune.
You got distracted, but I do have it. Yeah, and this is another one where it's like the inscription on the stone is basically just saying the name of who carved it.
Same thing again.
Same shit.
Elder Futhark. It's allegedly dated from 200 AD to 450 AD. So right there, you're already seeing like they have no way of knowing. Like you might as well just be admitting you don't know, right? And 1627 is when it was discovered. And the reason I say that is because if you guys haven't found these stones until after the freaking Middle Ages, how do you know to date them based on what letters people were using in the first couple centuries if you don't have anything to reference it to begin with? It's like there just seems to be something weird, and maybe I'm missing something, and there'll be people freaking out in the chat, but I just don't get it. And like I said, none of this shit enlightens us. But I like it. It looks good. It looks big. It looks like something that would look like more authentic,
Right. And then somehow the Germanic culture went through some sort of extreme throttling of technical savvy. And now they have the most technically advanced language in the world, to the extent that there's like, I think it's in Mein Kampf, there's a word that is like many pages long. It's like one of the longest words in the world, which is just fascinating, and that they're so technically inclined still today.
The Germans are the most industrious people of Europe, bar none.
Right.
Artists, the best. Like literally, why do you think Rome was so good? Why do you think Rome had such powerful engineering? Right? Like, because this was the epicenter of that ancient world, right? It's not like Italy was this like shut off place that nobody could get to. You know what I mean? And it's like, you look at that nowadays, the Italians are more like not lazy, like Italians are really gifted, like really talented at like arts and stuff, but they don't have that industriousness that the Germans have. The Germans have the drive to get
what comes from like colder versus warmer place to live too. I think has a lot to do with it. There's a lot of W's in this inscription as well. I find that interesting with all our digamma talk. That supposedly the name of the carver, I mean, on the carving, the name of the carver says is Wiwaz. So like there's a
one letter away from Tiwaz.
Double digamma. Yeah.
No, it's real curious that whole Nazi thing was Germany, and all I studied when I was in music college was German and Austrian music for almost exclusively, It was the cultural epicenter of the freaking world for a long time.
Right.
And
I
you know
feel
what I love about their painters? They are like the most. Have you ever seen like all that area, like whether it's Germanic, all that? Their paintings are so exquisite and crisp from like the Renaissance period. It's best. I love it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think the language is. You hear a Bach piece sung, it's pretty beautiful. People are used to hearing the Hitlerian Germany. You know, it's not the same. That's when you're speaking
What are
to
we
a
up
group
next?
in a certain way.
Oh,
you know?
real quick. So on that tune rune, was it real? One, it's definitely real. Two, it could be forged. Right. So next up was
I think everybody's just like in the could be either way it can.
I think the number 2 is we're all number 2.
Nobody wants to make a stance. Kilver stone. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, it's the Kilverston.
All right. So this one, it's also known as rune G88. Gabe's probably got something cooking up with that right now.
Yep.
So basically, it's a Swedish runestone which dates to about 400 AD, and it was found during the excavation of a cemetery near a farm at Kilver in Gotland, and that's 1903. So again, we have another ancient elder Futhark not noticed by anybody until 1903.
Not only that, but the inscription is the 24 Elder Futhark runes in order. Like, if this was a archaeological find, it was the jackpot find for someone's career. Like, oh, there it is. It's the alphabet in order, right? Like, it seems like a really convenient find. I don't know.
And like, I don't want to like sound like that guy who's just always the skeptic, but none of this is passing the sniff test for me. None of it. But that's me, just because I've been so jaded, I guess, looking at this shit. I'm just like, I don't understand why everybody's making a big deal out of this. So the next one is I don't even know how to pronounce this. Mojbro. I don't know. The Mojbro runestone. Emoji. Let's get some more emoji, bro. So that's spelled M. I forget what that O with the 2 dots at the top of it is called. Then
umlaut.
J.
Umlaut, yeah.
Umlaut, yeah. What's the U called? Do you know what the U called? U with the U with the 2 dots? It's the same thing. I'm used to typing it. I just don't know how to pronounce it. It's Mojbro runestone for those who want to look. And that's U877. And this one was created allegedly. This is when it's dated, whatever, the 5th to 6th century. So 400 AD to 550 AD, sometime in between them. At least this one is allegedly discovered in the 1600s. So it's a little bit, like the tombstone. At least it's from the 17th century, but it's still not until the 17th century. Nobody noticed it before then, allegedly. And this is the Elder Futhark. This is the language that everybody's so confident in the beginning of the Common Era. I don't understand why. Ready to go to the next one?
I would just say, comparatively to the other ones, I like this one more. Like,
what does it say? Do you know?
Let me pull that up. On the scale of believability, this one is more believable.
Yeah. It also this has Orion. That posture of the weapon over the head is very accurate to Orion. And Orion is not on a horse, but just next to him is Monoceros. It's just off by a couple degrees that he could be. You could just fuse Monoceros to his torso, and you're getting Orion right there.
So it looks like they don't know what it says.
There's a contention about the translation of this. It's like not sure, but it might say
is killed.
Yeah, Frawaradas is killed. That's the common interpretation.
But there's a couple letters in between that they don't know.
Killed. Maybe it's like a headstone. So again, in the realm of believability, if like someone got killed, you maybe buried them, or you just wanted to put a little marker up for them, and you were like a poor commoner or something like that. It's impressive that you know the runes, for back then. But maybe I think if I was going to believe any of them so far, this one would be the one I'd be more likely to believe. But who knows?
And again, only the priests know letters at this time. or people connected to that. And so maybe they were like, maybe he was like a king or a significant nobleman or something, and then the priest did that for him. I don't know. So 1, if you think it's real. 2, if you think it could be forged. The next up is the Jarsberg runestone. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's Jarsberg. And again, it's in the Elder Futhark. Dated from the 6th century. Not discovered till 1862. Looks cool. The translation is allegedly Lubaz, I am
right?
called. Hafran, I am called. Let me see. No, that's one of them. Do you have your
shoot me the link to the
email?
one you're talking about, because I didn't see it in the email list. It didn't come
shit.
next in order.
Oh, maybe I put it in the StreamYard. I might have just mixed it right there. And so it's like an upright one, and it's allegedly dated to the 6th century, and it says, Lubaz I am called, Hrafn I am called, I the Erl write the runes. The name Hrabnaz or Hrafn translates as raven, so it's probably like kind of like a rodent, Odin type of symbolism, right? He's the one with the ravens.
Right.
It's just like the other ones where dogs are barking, but it's just like the other ones where it's like the name of the person who carved it is what's on there. Oddly enough, like it was a trend.
Right.
And it's just, again, it's what is the necessity? What are you actually trying to write? Like what is the point of this? You know? And people say, oh, it's just for a religious ceremony or whatever, but it's like, okay, maybe it is like a phallic, Buddhic, site for offering stuff. That could very well be it. But just when I look at this, I'm not enlightened. And this is not coming from a time of primitive people where this would be impressive thousands of years before Christ, right? This is like a time where people are pretty much thriving. And artisanship is a lot better at this time. And so the next one, the next one is the one you just had, I think, Chance, would be the Bjorketorp or whatever. You're just there. Yeah, that's it. So that Bjorketorp, again, so this is the only one where I don't think there's a date on when it was discovered. But they date it based on the runes to the 6th or the 7th century, and it's Proto-Norse. So not really what we were looking for in terms of antiquity, but it looks legit old. It looks a little bit more legit. There's a detailed inscription though, if you can click on it. If you scroll down a little bit, Chance, on that page, there's an actual inscription you can click, and that people can see that. It looks pretty much. It looks legit, right? They're carving it in. They're painting it into, someone else could have painted that in, right? Just so you can read it.
Mm-hmm.
Looks legit, but nothing impressive. Nothing for what people are capable of at that time.
Yeah. So this all runs from left to right, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ought to. It might not. I mean, because depending on how old it is, it might not. It might be the Bustrofidon style where it's going like right to left and left to right. You know what I mean? Where each other align.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not skilled enough to read them. I'm just kind of getting into the reason I never focused on the North, because I never saw anything of antiquity there to warrant me looking into it for my purpose, which was to show the ancient universal empire. But just looking at it, you can see the same alphabetical origination.
Right.
But I don't know how to read it. I can't read it. But I'm sure there's people in the chat that know how to. So the next would be Stentoften. Stentoften. I don't know how to say it. It would be Stentoften, that runestone.
Another one where it's the guy who wrote it carving his name into it.
Is it? Oh my God. Are you serious? So again, this one is allegedly. Go
It
ahead.
says, to the dwellers and guests, Habulfar gave full year. Harry Wolfar. There's Harry. I, master of the runes, conceal here 9 bucks, 9 stallions. Habu Wolfar gave fruitful year. Hari Wolfar, I, master of the runes, conceal here runes of power. Incessantly plagued by maleficence, doomed to insidious death is he who this breaks.
I curse you.
Yeah.
And what's been
writing
writing
on
on
an
an angle?
1823.
1823.
That
How-
one was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It
Well, if you're
reminds me
gonna
of,
curse someone to insidious death, man, it should be for something nicer.
this one was definitely made by Techno Viking. Remember that guy, Techno Viking? His ancestor made that for sure.
Oh yeah, that's freaking great.
Do we have an insight on how common it is to really
I
write
could
on
make
these
that
angles?
tomorrow though if I had a rock. Go ahead, George.
Is it really common to write on these angles like this? Do we have a reference?
No, there's no
This
reference.
is
That's
what
I'm
we're being
saying.
given as the
This
reference.
is the reference.
This is
We're
the
looking
reference.
at the
You're
reference
looking
right
at
now.
it.
This is the reference to the Elder Futhark.
Man,
It's like it's embarrassing. I'm not trying to
It doesn't
insult
add
you,
up.
but
No,
because this could be real. I don't want, but for me, I look at this and I'm just like, man, you guys have fallen. This is real.
it's as good as
so the
anything
ne-
NASA gives.
Yeah, yeah. The next is the Eggia stone. So it's a EGGJA.
You know,
If I
it's like
mispronounce that.
it's a pattern too, because it's the same kind of thing applied to in the Americas. Like, oh, we had to conquer them; they were savages.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the exact vibe I'm getting from this, man. It's like insulting. I just don't like it. But again, it's just my emotionalism. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I could be
We
totally
love their
wrong.
farming and their medicine, though, but everything else got to go.
So this one is allegedly
The
dated
Eggia
from
stone.
600 to 700 in the Common Era. Is found in Norway. But again, guess what date it was plowed up in? 1917. I mean, just nothing's noticed until recently. It's just one after another. My grandfather was alive during this time. It's like, and it doesn't have it just looks crude. Like letters had already changed by the time they were using this. Like this would be so much more believable if they're like, no, this is from like Neolithic or some shit, like just like way older to kind of maybe correspond to like the stuff in Britain, like those what do you call, like the dolmens and stuff, that and like all these crazy megalithic things that they say is like from 5000 BC or whatever. That would make this impressive. But in the 7th and 8th century, and this is the best, I don't believe it for a second, but that's me. So one if it's legit, 2 if it could be faked. If it could be, doesn't mean it's fake, just if it could be.
I do find it in okay. So in the inscription here, it's here's the offered translation. It is not touched by the sun, and the stone is not scored by an iron knife. No man may lay it bare. When the waning moon runs, misguided men may not lay the stone aside. And the man
that actually enlightens the world.
Yeah, this has actually got a cool carving, right? The man sprinkled this stone with corpse sea blood, I guess. When with it he rubbed the tholes of the well-drilled boat, as who came the army god hither unto the land of warriors. A fish swimming out of the terrible stream, a bird screaming into the enemy band. So
Was the fish
it is
Dagbo or
interesting that
Dagon?
this is stained with blood, and that the god of armies, Heras, is referred to. They're saying it's a psychopomp god, as in an early form of Odin. To me, Heras is not a god name; it's a title. Then again, a lot of the names given for gods are really more of a title. The staining it with blood, though, I find that interesting because I was just reading in the Sanchuniathon, or Eusebius's game of telephone that they call the Sanchuniathon, the Phoenician cosmogony. I mentioned this earlier in the stream, quite a bit earlier in the stream, but there's a character in the Sanchuniathon called Usuus, or like Osuus, It's basically, it sounds a lot like Jesus without a J, like an early form
Sounds
of
like
Jesus.
Isis. Yeah.
And
Yeah, Isis. Or actually, it most reminds me of Esau, like Jacob and Esau from the Old Testament, especially because he teaches people how to wear clothing, and he wears animal skins as clothing. So, you know, presumably he's like hairy or furry because he's wearing furs, which is how Esau is described. And his name is like Esau, Esau or something like that. And part of his mythology is that he erects a pillar, 2 pillars. He erects a pillar to fire and a pillar to wind, and then pours the blood of wild animals on it. So, you know, here we have an example of like a stone with blood being poured on it. And it's got some sort of, you know, dedication.
I like that word, corpsey. That's a really poetic word to describe blood.
Corpse blood, yeah, you know? I like that about the whole literary tradition of you know, what's passed down to us from the Norse is cool. There's a lot of, it's very poetic. There's a lot like that whole concept of kenning. The ways they do their type of allegories is great. Like that. So we got a couple more. I'm trying to actually land the plane here soon.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Don't want to go.
I just posted if you want to show Isis, though. If you just want to show Isis, at least that's from the 1st century AD.
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that last one. That had a lot of high initiatory value in the reading. The aspect about it is not touched by the sun and the iron, not by the iron of the knife. That kind of resonates with the akusmatikoi, the inner circle of the Pythagoreans. And I just wanted to say that one kind of stands out as having a lot of initiatory value attributed to whatever they were saying. Also that, you know, the defiled ones cannot pass or turn over the stone. Yeah, a lot of elitism kind of in the spirit of what was said there.
And like when you're supposed to do rituals, like at certain points, of whether it's like the cycle of the moon or whatever, almost kind of remind me of not leaving the knife out in the full moon because it'll dull or some shit like that, you know?
Exactly.
Like, yeah. And so the next is the Roke runestone, if you're ready for that.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's Isis. Yeah, Isis. Yeah, Isis. So this is you know, another god of war, just like Tur, right? And this was found in the bowels of Notre Dame when they were like redoing the basement.
What?
Yeah.
Is this the fisherman's pillar or whatever?
Yeah, pillar of the boatman. Pillar. Yeah. So if you zoom in on the top, you'll see.
Yeah, and the other thing about this guy, Isus, is that he invented boats too in the Senkaniathon mythos.
And what's significant about this is Cernunnos is depicted. This is one of the only things where he's depicted on this, and he's got the same crab horns as Pontos. So he's of the sea, right? So in this, the real Cernunnos is of the sea, and as it makes its way inland, they put the stag horns on him. So
wow.
Yeah. So look up Pillar of the Boatman forever. I did a post on it. It's really good, really valuable.
I just had a strange linguistical connection. 2-tiered systems of law. Are we whispering unknowingly that it is an offering to the war god? 2-tier, you know, sold dyers. Soldiers are sold to die. Are they
Two and tier are both names of that guy.
Exactly. So there's like some, I just think that it's just fascinating how often what we think of as common tongue actually steers us into a votive offering to a god that we don't think of. We know about it, but people just don't have the context to think of it. So yeah, that's kind of fascinating that a 2-tiered system of law is like a votive offering 2-tier.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's there. And the next one is the one that probably impresses me the most. It's called the Rock runestone, or Roke. Kind of reminds me of Roker. R-O-K. The O has the 2 little dots, and you make that by hitting Option, I think U, and then O. This one is allegedly created in the 800s. It's actually the younger Futhark. So I'm sorry that I included this. I thought this was going to be an older one than it was. But again, it's not noticed till the 19th century. And my concern is it does look pretty, it looks pristine if you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
it
cool.
looks really cool.
It's actually impressive. It's not
nice
something
work.
that's like, yeah, it's like artistic. It's beautiful. So that to me, even if it's fake, I really do like the way that I think that's a cool. If it's real, it's awesome. If it's fake, it's so impressive.
Yeah.
The next is the Hagenvik runestone, Hoggganvik, and this one is allegedly dated to the 5th century. It is Elder Futhark, but it wasn't discovered till September 2009.
Oh my!
Nobody noticed it.
Where was this thing hiding? Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. If you guys want to go through what it says, by all means.
That's crazy. 2009. Nice one, James E.
The reason I'm driving this home is because of the weight that has been put upon the Elder Futhark on these artifacts that are all, for the most part, very modern, except for those few that are allegedly found in the 17th century.
So let me just read the interpretation.
Yeah, do it.
It says, Skelba Pewaz, shaking servant, stone, AAASRPKF, a meaningless sequence of letters used as an incantation, is the claim. 2, I, the rune carver, am called I Naudigastes. I nicknamed the Wolverine. So a lot of this is inserted like assumptions. But apparently there's a lot of meaningless, so-called meaningless sequences, and that they're saying, oh, that just means alphabet magic. But that also could be like, you know, forger not knowing what they're doing. Who knows? You know, this is like the forgers of if there were forgers of the 1800s or early 19th or in early 1900s, they, you know, at least did a pretty good job. And then like the guy in 2009, it's a lazy, shitty job. That makes sense to me. Who knows? But it does say there is a claim of an archaeological discovery underneath it. A burial was found under the site, but not excavated. So makes you wonder. But like that's a claim, but like if there's nothing excavated, then that claim kind of doesn't get to be verified or not verified. I'd have to look into it more, but
yeah, and I'm not buying that for a second because, well, I guess because it's modern, I can see them being very like tight-lipped about it because it's forgery.
Sure.
But if this were like in the 1800s, I mean, you look at the Britons, love them or hate them, these motherfuckers would go to like Stonehenge. They'd go to all the tumuli and like camp out there for like months on end, digging up the bodies and shit just to see what the hell's under these sepulchral. You know, they figured it out. Like it's there. But I posted in the chat the world's oldest runestone, or in our chat, you know, not the audience. So if you want to bring that up, and this one, I laughed my ass off because I'm just no. This thing is allegedly from some time between the 1st century and the 3rd century AD. Can you see it? And the thing that really made me laugh is the date it was discovered, autumn of 2021. There's your other Futhark, motherfuckers, right? Let's make sure we put all our credibility and all our history based on these artifacts that aren't freaking discovered till a couple hundred years ago and till, you know, 2 years ago. And look at it.
You know,
dude. This is the height of Rome, and this is all you're doing. Right. I'm embarrassed.
That's all they got.
Right. You know, there is a kind of something really strange going on with I always get Greenland and Iceland confused. Forgive me.
Iceland's the small one with the volcanoes and stuff. Greenland's the big one with the ice.
I think it's Greenland, but there's a new officially recognized religion coming up. And and I'm gonna fuck up the name too. It's like Azatru is like the short way of saying the name of this new religion. And it's essentially what I see it as is kind of a newfangled, amalgamated, hybrid pagan movement. A lot of people probably come at it with a very critical attitude to say that it's like pagan New Ageism. And they are putting out a lot of energy, getting a lot of attention, and probably a lot of funding to try to attach themselves to ancient roots of some sort or another. So I'm not making any claims, but I'm saying that there are big dollars. Oh, and by the way, it's becoming recognized as the national religion. So it's like it's not just some little side group of people. They're actually getting their name put on the books. And so a lot of what we might be digging up right now is probably going to be used as ammunition for them to try to legitimize themselves and get a place at the table, if you know what I'm saying.
That sounds
Listen, Witchers, drink your potions. we might be going into battle, boys. So get it going.
And
get your potions from Tippecanoe Herbs. Use the InnerVerse coupon code. Here's the one: Bladder will help you go through a 3-hour stream and not need to get up and go pee.
Nice.
10% off InnerVerse coupon code Tippecanoe Herbs. Awesome potions. Literally the same as what the Witcher potions are. It's tinctures, decoction, awesome stuff.
Best name magic,
wild crafted.
Best name magic in the business, no doubt. So a while back, again, I'm sorry for not having the receipts on some of this. I found a German think tank from before the Second World War that their logo was in Runic. And I flashed it by our Norse buddy who recognizes the difference in these systems. And he was like, you know what? That's not Elder. That's not Younger. That looks like the forbidden text. He's like, give me a minute. And he goes off and does a little research, and he comes back. He like screen caps what I brought up. He comes back and he's like, yo, man, be careful where you flash that. That's some of the forbidden Runic language. And I forget what he called it, but it just kind of brought it to the forefront that like there are forms of Runic language that are forbidden, not for the uninitiated, and it conformed to what I had found with this think tank. It turns out, the rumor is that there was more money channeled into that think tank back when eugenics was a good thing. When people were like, eugenics, it's good, and nobody's talking about dysgenics. There's that dis again, right? The dysgenics. Well, they put more funding into that think tank than they put into the Manhattan Project. And a lot of people are like, what? Where did that money go? And so it's just a real fascinating thing to see how politicized certain Runic systems were way back then. And now we're at a position where if I go flashing these runes around, which I actually did, I think that's on my YouTube channel, that people will make a judgment call on you, or you might turn up some, skeletons in some people's closets. And in fact, I'll just say this. The logo of the Mandalorian was a match for this think tank logo. And when you put the Mandalorian's logo on this think tank's logo, which is a sword inside of a ribbon with all these crazy runes around it, it's kind of a fit. And I don't know what I might have turned over because I don't speak that language. But it's fascinating when I show it to somebody who does know. They're like, yo, man, be careful where you flash that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just like the inverted peace symbol or inverted swastika.
Right.
Can someone post that Mandalorian thing so I can look? Because I can't. I posted Mandalorian logo and all I get is Star Wars, whatever. I don't get the real.
Oh, they call it. You know what they call it? It's the mythosaur.
Of course. We're surprised.
Hey, before we get too far past it, shout out to Etherists Unite. he wrote Asatru, right? Asatru or whatever. But if you look at that root,
yes.
Asa, but it's also Isha or Aisha, which is Christ. That's the Arabic form of word for Christ.
Yes.
True Christ, the true Christos. I don't know.
Right. And it is so fascinating how certain groups of people start making a claim on history and other groups of people lose their shit. Yeah. And that one, apparently I kicked over a nest of badgers on accident. There it is. That's it. Yeah, you got it. So yeah, and this is another thing, by the way. This is what Disney is pushing now in the new generation. This is, post George Opie Lucas dynasty. This is the new age. This is the new age Disney bullshit. Is they're really pushing this mythosaur, which to those of us who know, that's like a slap in the face that they're calling it a mythosaur. It's so blatant.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and
I've got a little tear in my eye.
I'm glad that you went there because
it's so random.
People,
you always drop these, Gabe.
The history of forgery with artifacts relating to so-called dinosaurs. That's exactly it. Like if people can accept that a lot of the stuff about dinosaurs is myth, is forgery, it's easier to forge shit like runestones,
Right. That's exactly, I have been watching the new Mandalorian, all this new malarkey that's coming out with it. And they are just, I don't know. It's blatant. It's super blatant. And if you got the eyes to see, you're like, you fuckers. And there's people out there who are like,
tarot.
Non-consensual.
This is non-consensual. You know how like black people at movie theaters, they always yell like they're really like, what are you doing, motherfucker? Turn around. So when next time you're there, you need to be like, non-consensual tarot, motherfucker.
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it.
All right, guys, give your plugs, y'all. We're gonna wrap this up, otherwise we'll just keep going. It's fun times, but we'll do it again. And thanks for being here, gentlemen. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Great.
I mean, you first, George.
Catch up with you guys.
Okay.
Go, George. Take it away.
I do all kinds of stuff, whatever comes off the top of my head, whatever I'm working on for weeks or months or whatever. And I'm sure you can all come along for the ride and you'll have a great time. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rockfin, Third Eye Edify. Thank you so much for having me, Chance. As always, guys, it's been a blast.
You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are a gentleman. Him and Mario are like competing to be the most polite guys on the internet.
That's true.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm going to have him on again to follow up. We did an AI art episode. We're going to do another one because so much has happened since we did it. We've got to do a round 2 now.
He's such a good artist.
Escalated for sure.
Love it. All right, where do they find you, Gabe?
Slick Dissident on the YouTubes. I also get down on the Weaving Spiders webs. Catch me on the One-on-One podcast. I've had some fun over there, I tell you what. And then you catch me on Rising from the Ashes as well.
Awesome. And my name is Dylan Sicosio. I'm the author of Spirit World, and you can find everything. I posted the link in the chat, but it's beacons, beacons.ai/Great Tide, GreatTide. From there, you can get my socials. And for everyone who sees this, if you want, you can hit me up on my Instagram at Holy Sailors. Just send me a message, and all you have to do is put Chance, send the message, and then your email, and I'll give you a free month at my Substack, assuming you haven't already taken advantage of it. And just try to respect those rules because I'm copying it from the messages and posting it in. So I'm not really, so just Chance, send that message, then your email in one single message, send it, and I'll give you a free month.
That's Thank you for supporting Holy Sailors on Instagram.
Appreciate it.
Very good. All right, guys, and I'll see everybody tomorrow at the Alpha Cast at noon Central.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone in the chat.
Bye,
It's
guys.
been a good one tonight, and much love. Catch you all in the next one.
Much love to the
All right,
chat.
see you. Good night, guys.